Chapter 4869. No, it doesn't look like it. Ji Wuhua shook his head. Feng Zhangqing pressed her down on her seat. Since Miss Qing Luo will not be bullied, why do you need to go over? Of course Ji Wuhua wouldn't say that it was because he wanted to eavesdrop on them, to find out what was the relationship between that Red Clear Pavilion's pavilion master and Miss Qing Luo. His mind spun quickly as he changed the topic and stared at Feng Zhangqing. You're now the appointed young Miss Qing Luo's fiancé. Aren't you worried that young Miss Qing Luo will be snatched away by Red Clear Pavilion's pavilion master? He touched his face and sighed. I originally thought that there wouldn't be a second man in the world who could be more handsome than me. Now, the Scarlet Clarity Pavilion's pavilion master doesn't want to admit it, but he has no choice but to admit that he's better looking than me. Ji Wuhua mournfully covered his own face once again. He's even better looking than me. What if Miss Qing Luo falls in love with him? What should I do? What should you do? Feng Zhangqing looked at the drama queen Ji Wuhua as his gentle brows revealed a sliver of helplessness. Since Miss Qing Luo didn't like the Red Clear Pavilion's pavilion master right from the start, then she wouldn't accept him in the future. As for me, I'm just following the arrangements of the acting god emperor. But Miss Qing Luo will not agree to this marriage, so I'm not considered as Miss Qing Luo's fiancé. Miss Qing Luo is so pretty and has such a personality. Do you really not have any feelings for her? Ji Wuhua's face was filled with suspicion. Feng Zhangqing shook his head and said, The one I love is not her. Ji Wuhua's eyes suddenly lit up. You actually have someone you like? Then who do you like? Could she be even more beautiful than Miss Qing Luo? No. Feng Zhangqing continued to shake his head, but he didn't say a word about the person he liked. Ji Wuhua stared at Feng Zhangqing for a long time. Suddenly, he crossed his arms in front of his chest, his face full of shame and indignation. You, the person you like, could it be me? Feng Zhangqing. Gram. He walked out of the hall. Yi Qing Luo then walked towards the room that her grandfather had arranged for her in the courtyard. Grandfather had already been worried sick about the reunion banquet. Then, Feng Shi's abduction. Grandpa was under too much pressure. Yi Qing Luo felt that although it wasn't far from here to the Feng residence, but based on her grandfather's current condition, it was better to rest nearby. Hence, Yi Qing Luo suggested to stay in the other courtyard for a night. She even gave Granny Feng some aromatherapy to calm her grandfather's nerves so that he could sleep more comfortably. He took a few steps. Yi Qing Luo suddenly stopped in her tracks as she turned her head around and looked at the man behind her with an unpleasant expression. Why are you following me for? The red-clothed, black-haired man was expressionless. A pair of eyes that were as calm as an ancient well, like an emotionless crystal. Sparkling and translucent, beautiful, beautiful. However, it did not have the slightest luster of a soul. He gazed deeply into her face. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath. When we were in the lower realm, wasn't what I said clear enough? Very clear. Zhu Wuxin said calmly. You said that it is your right, but whether or not I continue to like you is my right. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Yi Qing Luo, you've been in the God realm for such a long time, that man has not come looking for you? Yi Qing Luo's face turned cold. This has nothing to do with Master Zhu, right? Yes. Zhu Wuxin's voice was a little chilly when he spoke words of love. Everything about you is related to me. Chapter 4870. Yi Qing Luo. She pursed her pink lips, not wanting to waste her breath talking to him about give up on her, don't pester her, etc., etc. Anyway, Zhu Wu Xian's paranoia was already beyond cure. He wouldn't listen. She might as well ask directly, why did you come to God Realm? Because of you. Zhu Wu Xian gazed deeply at her. I know you came to God Realm, so I came. Not waiting for Yi Qing Luo to say a word. He continued, I knew you came to God Realm, so I specially followed you here. But Dmo Xian didn't. His lips seemed to curl up slightly. It made that cold face revealed a gentleness which didn't match his character. This is enough to prove that to him, you're not the most important. He put on a very happy look. Yiqing Luo, only I really like you. Saying that, Zhu Wu Xian took a step closer to her. He stretched out his hand towards her, as though he wanted to hold her wrist. Yiqing Luo immediately took a step back as her eyes sunk slightly. Zhu Wu Xian, I don't want to talk nonsense with you. Zhu Wu Xian's body stiffened as though he had suffered a blow as his arm drooped down bit by bit. His eyes were as deep as water as he stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. Looking at him, it indeed made one's heart ache. Nonsense. To you, my feelings towards you are just nonsense? Zhu Wu Xian scoffed lightly as his eyes turned frosty. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm as she didn't have any intention of being moved as she spoke calmly. Zhu Wu Xian, I respect every single feeling and respect your obsession towards me. But this obsession of yours has obviously troubled me. Her eyes were very faint as her long and narrow eyes were without any ripples. Since you don't respect my answer to you, then I don't need to respect your obsession. Zhu Wu Xian's pupils seemed to be surging with waves. One wave after another surged wildly. In the end, there was no sound. Yiqing Luo's fingertips gently brushed past the hair on her forehead as her peerless brows were indifferent. I'm very grateful for your worry and concern towards me, but I don't need it. Her gaze was cold as she calmly met Zhu Wu Xian's serene and lifeless eyes. If you came to God Realm because of me, then now you can leave. Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wuxin's tone was slightly angry. His cold and emotionless face was dark and gloomy. I knew long ago that you weren't her. That she was naturally referring to the Shaoqing Luo who once gave little Chu heartless warmth. Yiqing Luo didn't have any other expression, only looking at him quietly. Don't you want to know why I'm working with the Palace of Darkness? Zhu Wuxin let out a low chuckle. His thick and long eyelashes drooped slightly, covering his eyes that were filled with coldness and pain. Because the Palace of Gloomy Shadows promised me that they would help me summon back the soul that originally belonged to her, and let her, who has me in her heart, return to my side. Zhu Wu Xian's words made Yiqing Luo's pupils shrink slightly. Zhu Wuxin's expression did not seem to be lying. That also meant, actually, the people of the Gloomy Palace already knew her true identity. Did he know that there was another soul in her body? Even this kind of thing, does the Palace of Gloomy Darkness know about it? As for the Dark Abyss Palace, how did she know about something that only she and Ah Xian knew? Initially, I really hoped that she could come back. Zhu Wu Xian's deep and low voice entered her ears once again. He sneered as his tone was filled with ridicule, but later on I dispelled this idea. Chapter 48-71. Zhu Wu Xian raised his eyes, his gaze was burning, as deep as a cold lake, as he stared at her without blinking. I hope the person who remains in this body is you. The man's voice was icy cold. She couldn't tell whether he was happy or angry, but it still made Yiqing Luo's heart jolt. You said, I like you because of my obsession. Zhu Wu Xian's thin lips curled slightly, his cold face revealed a faint smile. Then now, do you feel it's still obsession? Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. Still? She was unable to answer. If she said it was because of obsession, but he had long known that this body of hers had already changed to core, and was no longer the little Qing Luo who gave him warmth in the past, and had been pursuing till now. This really could no longer be considered as obsession towards the past. What he meant was, the person he liked was the current her, and not the past her? Zhu Wu Xian's smile didn't diminish, instead it became even more intense. Yes, I like you. Yiqing Luo was stunned once again. After some time, she regained her senses as her eyes congealed slightly. Zhu Wu Xian. Her voice was very soft. She was obviously close at hand, but there was an inexplicable feeling. Zhu Wu Xian inexplicably didn't want to listen to the young lady's later words. But the young lady's voice was heard immediately. No matter if your obsession is it the past her or me, between us, it's impossible. His eyes were like a bottomless abyss, dark and silent. Yi Qing Luo continued, moreover, no matter if it's your pleasure or your obsession, it can't conceal the fact that you once made use of my trust towards you, and destroyed the trust one have towards you. Zhu Wu Xian, I won't believe you. She turned around as she headed towards her own room. Go back, don't look for me anymore. Her resolute back view, without any reluctance. Cold, aloof, arrogant, unattainable. Zhu Wu Xian's hands, which were hanging by his side, tightened. The storm which gathered in his eyes seemed as though it was going to swallow him into the darkness. Until the young lady took a few steps away. His thin lips moved slightly as he spoke out coldly, I know, where is the nearest base of secluded darkness palace in God realm. The slender figure in front of him suddenly stopped. Night. The moonlight was cold and gloomy. It was as if all the light had been covered. Under the night sky the two figures were like ghosts, until it stopped outside one of the 5 great aristocratic families, the Jiang aristocratic family. Jiang Mansion? Yi Qing Luo looked up at the plaque in front of her and frowned slightly. This has something to do with the Jiang family's aristocrats? Under the dim moonlight, the red-clothed, black-haired man stood quietly in the darkness like a lonely elf. He looked at the side of the girl's face and said faintly, it can be considered related. Sort of? Yi Qing Luo's brows creased even tighter. I'll listen to you and bear with it till nighttime before I start to take action. I only want to bring Cece home now. I don't have the patience to play the game of you guess I guess with you. Either say it or shut up. Zhu Wuxin did not speak again. Instead, he turned around and leaped into the Jiang manor. Yi Qing Luo suppressed the anxiety in her stomach and followed suit. Soon, the two of them quietly approached each other in the most remote and dark place of the Jiang Mansion, Jiang Mansion's dungeon. The dungeon was really built underground. The abandoned courtyard was the entrance. Weeds were overgrown, and it looked extremely desolate. But just as they stepped into the abandoned courtyard, Yi Qing Luo sensed an extremely cold aura lingering in the courtyard. Chapter 4872. It was a very sinister aura. The people of Gloomy Palace really know how to hide. Yi Qing Luo sneered as her lips curled upwards. The cold, enchanting arc made the pair of long, narrow, and charming eyes exude a bit of coldness in the dark and gloomy abandoned courtyard. Who could have imagined it? The base of the palace of gloomy darkness. Would it be hidden in the dungeon of the Jiang family? This was indeed a place, so safe that no one would be able to guess where it was. Yi Qing Luo's gaze turned slightly as she congealed towards Zhu Wu Xian. Are you sure? The girl's tone was not cold. But there was doubt in it. This caused Zhu Wuxin's heart to violently thump. His eyes dimmed and his voice was hoarse. I won't hurt you. Yi Qing Luo smiled but didn't give any response. Zhu Wuxin pursed his lips, and a trace of pain and sorrow flashed in his eyes. He clenched his fingers into a fist and suppressed the pain in his chest. He said, "Let's go." One word came out of his mouth. He had already taken the lead and stepped into the cool entrance of the dungeon. The black-haired man in red blended into the night. It was as if he belonged to the darkness. Looking at Zhu Wuxin's back, Yi Qing Luo's pink lips moved slightly. He wanted to say something, but the words that were about to come out of his mouth stopped. In the end, he didn't say anything and followed Zhu Wuxin. The path to the dungeon was long and dark. It was so quiet that only the sound of their clothes rubbing against each other could be heard. Yi Qing Luo had been releasing her perception to the maximum, as she vigilantly sensed the surrounding situation. After walking for the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, Yi Qing Luo's ears faintly heard a few voices. She stopped in her tracks. In the next instant, her wrist was grabbed by the man. The cold touch made Yi Qing Luo want to shake it off. However, the man was very strong. Pulling her along, he turned abruptly in another direction. It was a fork in the road. That was the moment he turned into the intersection. Flames could be seen ahead. It was clearly swaying, and it was accompanied by a few people's complaints. "Boss, why did you bring that brat here? So hard to please. I really want to hack him to death. Boss said that none of us are allowed to touch that brat. It seems like the higher-ups need that brat. It's because of boss's order that brat is so lawless and out of control. He's sure that we won't dare to do anything to him. All right, let's go out and buy some candied haws. When boss comes back, let's see how that brat dies." The few of them were cursing and swearing as they walked past Yi Qing Luo and Chu Wu Exen. No one noticed the two of them. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly. She narrowed her eyes. Those people should be disciples of the Dark Nether Palace. From their conversation, Yi Qing Luo was certain. The brat they were talking about should be Feng Shi. As for the boss, it was the black-robed man that they had met before. Looks like Feng Shi was safe for the time being. He could even torture these dark, secluded palace disciples to such a state. Worthy of being the child of the Feng family. Yi Qing Luo's heart was finally at ease. The group of people walked out of the dungeon. Yi Qing Luo swung Zhu Wu Xian's hand away. "Can you let go now?" The big hand that held her wrist. His 5 fingers slightly increased the strength. After a moment of silence, he then released his hand. "Let's go." Yi Qing Luo's gaze looked towards the direction of the intersection. This dungeon. Why are there 2 paths? That side, where does it lead to? Zhu Wu Xian took a look at the endless darkness ahead. He didn't answer Yi Qing Luo's question. He only indifferently looked towards the direction where those dark secluded palace disciples had walked past. "Feng Shi, it's this way." Chapter 48-73. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as she fixed her gaze on that path as she took a look. Following that, she turned back and walked towards Feng Shi's path. "Let's go." The two of them walked forward silently. This time round, they didn't meet any other secluded palace's disciples. After walking for a while, Yi Qing Luo could obviously feel the overflowing evil qi in front of her. Zhu Wu Xian stretched out his hand to grab her arm, but Yi Qing Luo avoided it. She took a step forward and leaned sideways against the uneven wall as she hid herself in the darkness. Zhu Wu Xian's hand grabbed onto empty air. He lowered his eyes and in the darkness, he gazed at his frozen hand in midair. Slightly stunned for a moment, he slowly retracted his hand. Immediately after, he turned sideways and hid into the darkness. They walked forward for a distance. Yi Qing Luo could see very clearly in front of her, a huge iron door, horizontally in front. There were a few tall and sturdy secluded palace's disciples dressed in black robes as they leaned on the side and chatted idly. There was a bright light swaying in the wind. It made the reflection of the steel door extremely long. If they wanted to enter from here, they definitely had to defeat these secluded palace's disciples first. But, the moment they took action, it would definitely attract the attention of secluded palace. That would be a huge risk to Feng Shi's safety. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers caressed the profound phoenix ring as she squinted her eyes slightly. "Looks like I can only use poison." Just as she took out a bottle of poison powder, she was prepared to blend into the air silently and make those secluded palace's disciples who were guarding the door faint. All of a sudden, a crisp, young voice rang out from behind him. "I heard that Elder Su has kidnapped a little brat? Where is he?" That voice was not far away. Just at the corner in front. Yi Qing Luo's body suddenly stiffened. She turned her head to look at that intersection, at the lights which appeared. There were at least 5 to 6 people's footsteps. Her complexion turned slightly pale. At this moment, she was in a dilemma. If the person behind her took another few steps forward, they would definitely discover her and Zhu Wu Xen. If they moved forward, Those secluded palace's disciples who were guarding outside the steel door would discover them. Don't move. Zhu Wuxin's low and hoarse voice rang in his ears. Then, his hand grasped her wrist through the sleeve of her robe. Yiqing Luo's body lightened. His feet were suspended in the air. He had already been brought into the sky. This movement was very big. However, Zhu Wuxin controlled it very well, not making any sound at all. In addition, the crisp and tender voice on the other side was still chattering non-stop. It also covered the slight sound of Yiqing Luo's sleeves fluttering in the wind. Perhaps he knew that she did not like his touch. Zhu Wuxin only used the strength of one hand to hook her body and maintain her balance. They weren't close at all. His other hand was tightly gripping the protruding part of the rock wall. Fortunately, the cave was very high up. The two of them leaped into the air and hung on the cliff. The people below did not notice their presence. Soon, 6 attendants escorted a person over. The 2 attendants in front carried lanterns. The bright light illuminated the people in the middle clearly. That was a young lady who was around 11 or 12 years old and looked extremely adorable. Dressed in a pink long dress, holding 2 skewers of candied haws in her hands. One look and one could tell that she was a pampered little princess. When a row of people walked to the steel door, the few people guarding the door immediately straightened their bodies and bowed respectfully towards the young lady. Princess Ling Long. Young lady Ling Long waved her hand. Elder Su caught a little brat. I want to meet that little brat. Chapter 48-74. This. The secluded palace's disciple looked at each other in dismay as he replied hesitantly, Elder Su had ordered that no one is allowed to go near that little brat. Princess Linglong's expression sunk instantly. What you mean is, even I can't do it? Princess Linglong. The secluded palace's disciple's face turned green. Please don't make things difficult for me. Linglong's face was cold as she threw the candied haws in her hands towards an attendant by the side. She hurried past the few attendants and walked towards the secluded palace's disciple. I want to make things difficult for you, what can you do? Linglong placed her hands on her waist in an extremely pampered manner as she raised her chin and walked towards the secluded palace's disciple. Her face was filled with delight. She was relying on the fact that they didn't dare to touch her. And without any scruples, the secluded palace's disciple instantly retreated in a fluster. Princess Linglong, we are only listening to Elder Su's orders. You also know Elder Su's temper. If I ask you to look for that little brat and Elder Su finds out, Elder Su will not blame you, but Elder Su will definitely kill us. If you don't give way, I will kill you right now. Linglong was apparently a spoiled little princess, so arrogant that she was out of control, totally disregarding those secluded palace's disciples who were guarding the entrance. After she finished her words, she raised her hand. Go! The attendants didn't hesitate at all as they walked towards the direction of the secluded palace's disciples. These attendants, apparently all of them had their own unique skills. When they released all the profound energy from their bodies, the entire underground cave seemed to be surging with earth-shattering waves. The secluded palace's disciples were so scared that they were shivering. He was angry and indignant at the same time. But most of them were fearful. They didn't dare to make a move against these attendants. The scene was a little chaotic. The longer Yiqing Luo hung in the air. Zhu Wu Xian, who was carrying her with one hand, gradually increased his strength. The little princess below apparently didn't intend to use the fastest speed to barge into the secluded palace's underground prison. If this went on, Zhu Wu Xian would probably not be able to hold on. Furthermore, this posture of hanging in the air. It was really unbearable. He had to think of something. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as her gaze suddenly fell onto the 2 attendants standing behind Princess Linglong, who were protecting the princess's safety. Her eyes suddenly brightened. She raised her hand and poked the back of Zhu Wuxin's hand. Zhu Wu Xian was slightly stunned as he turned his head towards Yiqing Luo in shock. as though he was extremely astonished that Yi Qing Luo took the initiative to look for him. He was astonished to the point Zhu Wuxin was so excited that he didn't have enough strength. The two of them almost fell down. Yi Qing Luo indicated for him to look down. Zhu Wuxin stared at the two attendants with some surprise in his eyes. It seemed to be asking, "You want to do that?" Yi Qing Luo nodded. Zhu Wuxin had no intention of stopping him. He nodded at her. The two of them looked at each other. His figure suddenly moved. While the attendants and the disciples of the Palace of Darkness were engaged in a chaotic battle, he quietly landed in a tunnel not far away. Then, he quietly crept over. Yi Qing Luo also didn't know why when Zhu Wu Xian sneaked over silently. Those people, none of them noticed his existence or the fluctuations in his aura. But Yi Qing Luo knew herself. It was because of this jade pendant which Feng Liqiong gave her. As well as herself, the execution of the blink movement secret art. Yi Qing Luo glanced sideways at the man beside her as her eyes squinted slightly, concealing the deep meaning in her eyes. She didn't dare to say, nor did she dare to ask. Chapter 48-75. Their movements were almost like clones. He approached the two attendants at the same time. The two of them stretched out their hands at the same time and sprinkled the poison powder on the servant. Then, he steadily caught the unconscious attendant and quickly dragged him away. The movements of the two people, light, slow, and fast. He didn't even catch the attention of Linglong, who had her hands on her hips and was looking at the Palace of Darkness disciple fighting with her attendant. The two of them quickly tore off the servant's coat and covered themselves with it. The people of secluded Darkness Palace all had one thing in common. He was dressed in a long black robe that covered his head. Only the embroidery on the black robe and the unique totem symbol proved his official position and status in the Palace of Darkness. The two of them put on their outer robes. Coincidentally, his entire body was hidden in the black robe. No one could see their faces. No one would recognize them. Zhu Wu Xian went to deal with the two fainted attendants. Yi Qing Luo picked up the candied haws on the ground and walked towards the direction of the little princess. As soon as she stood still, she saw the little princess staring at her with a frown. "Little Seven, where did you go?" The little princess looked displeased. Yi Qing Luo adjusted her tone and replied in a low voice, "There's movement over there." 7. Is this the code name of the owner of this robe? No wonder you and Lil 6 suddenly went over there. The little princess pursed her lips and said with a look of disdain, "You guys just like to make a fuss. This is my father's secret base. How could there be any commotion?" "Yes," Yi Qing Luo replied. The little princess raised her hand and pointed forward. "Don't be lazy. Hurry up and catch those people and throw them away. There is no place in the Palace of Darkness that I can't go." The disciples of the secluded Darkness Palace were no match for the servants. If it wasn't for the fact that the attendants showed mercy and didn't have the intention to kill them, their corpses would have long been strewn across the iron gate. The little princess was about to send more people to beat them up. He decisively let them pass. What a joke! If they didn't let him in again, Elder Su had yet to return. They would really be dead. "Princess Linglong, I know my mistake. I'll bring you to that brat now." A wise man submits to circumstances. After all, the other party was Princess Linglong. Even if Elder Su asked, they were only forced by Princess Linglong's threat and could not do anything about it. Thinking like this, the disciples of secluded Darkness Palace immediately compromised. Then, he sent 2 injured men to lead the way in front of him. Yi Qing Luo took a glance at the empty space behind her. Zhu Wuxin had yet to return. He watched as the little princess walked closer to the iron gate. Yi Qing Luo retracted her gaze and quickened her pace to follow behind the little princess. The little princess was leading the way. It was truly unimpeded. She took the opportunity to scan her surroundings. He drew a map of the surrounding terrain in his mind. Along the way, he encountered many disciples dressed in black robes. when he saw Princess Linglong. All of them bowed respectfully. Then, he saw the limping, scarred guide. They were not surprised or surprised at all. It was as if he was already used to it. It could be seen that Princess Linglong's unruly reputation in the Palace of Darkness was undeniable. Very quickly, the group of people arrived at the house where Little Wimp was imprisoned. In this dark and desolate dungeon, there was an independent space in the house. It was already considered as the best. The room's door was locked tightly. The sound of things crashing and crashing could also be heard from inside, accompanied by the child's crisp howling, "Let me out! Let me out!" Chapter 48-76. Yiqing Luo's eyes congealed slightly. It was Feng Shi's voice. Feng Shi was indeed brought to the base of the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing Luo suppressed the worry in her heart and made her presence and everything the same as the other attendants, so quiet as though she didn't exist. Shao Qi. Suddenly, she heard Linglong's call. Yiqing Luo immediately raised her head and looked at Linglong. "Give it to me." She stretched out her hand. Yiqing Luo went into a blank as she saw her right hand waving towards her and immediately reacted as she passed the candied fruit in her hand to Linglong. "This is the little brat you've caught?" Linglong stared at the tightly shut door as she laughed with interest. "Yes." The Palace of Darkness disciple immediately replied. "Open the door," Linglong ordered. There was a disciple guarding the door as an example. The Palace of Darkness disciple who was guarding outside the room naturally didn't dare to delay as he quickly opened the door. Bam! A teapot was thrown towards Linglong. "Princess Linglong!" Immediately, the surrounding people cried out in alarm. The teacup had already been smashed, swoosh. Linglong's wrist was grabbed by someone as she was violently pulled backwards. That teacup was smashed onto the person who was blocking in front of her. Linglong could vaguely smell a very pleasant fragrance. She blinked her eyes as she raised her head. The person who was blocking in front of her let go of her. "Please punish me for offending Princess Linglong." Linglong looked at the shattered teacup on the ground, as well as the person's black robe which was drenched. There was even a thin layer of mist spreading. Apparently, the teacup which was thrown was filled with boiling hot tea. "No problem." Linglong shook her head. "Shao Qi, you saved me. Who else could the person who blocked the teacup for her if it wasn't Yiqing Luo?" She was standing the closest. At this juncture, as an attendant, she naturally had to stand up for her master. She still hadn't managed to save Feng Shi. She absolutely couldn't ruin her image. She didn't expect. Linglong's next sentence made Yiqing Luo even more certain that her actions this time round were simply right. "I will make an exception and recommend you to be my personal attendant." She raised her chin arrogantly. Yiqing Luo cupped her fist. "Thank you, Princess Linglong." Linglong looked at the room again and walked towards it. The disciple of secluded Darkness Palace immediately said, "Princess Linglong, the brat inside is too violent. If you go in and hurt your precious daughter, his lordship will feel sorry for you." Linglong thought of the teacups and the sounds of them crashing to the ground. After thinking for a while, he pointed to Yiqing Luo. "Let Shao Qi accompany me in." This was exactly what Yiqing Luo wanted. Yiqing Luo walked in front. Linglong followed behind. He even specially locked the room. As soon as he entered the room, what greeted him was a flurry of things being thrown at him. Yiqing Luo immediately waved her robe and blocked those things. Linglong poked her little head out from behind her and stared curiously in the direction where the thing had been thrown from. Amidst the ruins, a pink and jade-carved little dumpling was standing there, panting. A pair of black and white clear big eyes stared fiercely at them. Her eyes were instantly filled with a trace of smile. "You're the little brat that Elder Su had kidnapped? You're indeed so small. Let me out." Feng Shi's expression was cold and her eyes were filled with a chilly intent. The current him. Totally no one could tell that he was so cute in front of Yiqing Luo. He looked exactly like the real Feng family's eldest grandson should have the attitude. Chapter 48-77. Ling Long walked past Yi Qing Luo and directly towards Feng Shi. It's not impossible for me to let you out. Feng Shi looked at her warily. What's your motive? He naturally could tell. The identity of this young girl in front of him should be extremely distinguished in this place. Would she let him out? Ling Long walked nearer to Feng Shi and suddenly stretched out her hand. Feng Shi was so shocked that she jumped backwards, out of Ling Long's range of reach. Ling Long's hand touched thin air. Her small, delicate face and big, bright eyes revealed a bit of interest. This unruly princess who called her attendant a slave just because she was slightly resisted. Now that she was rejected, she actually had no intention of getting angry. Instead, she laughed. What's there to be nervous about? Do you think I will eat you up? She retracted her hand and walked towards the vigilant Feng Shi. Didn't you want to eat candied haws? I specially brought 2 skewers of candied haws for you. Her vision swept towards Yi Qing Luo. Shao Qi passed the candied haws to him. Previously Yi Qing Luo heard a few secluded palaces' disciples going out to buy candied haws for Feng Shi. So Ling Long brought her attendant over specially to deliver candied haws to Feng Shi. This unruly little princess, would she be so kind? Yi Qing Luo's expression remained unchanged as she walked towards Feng Shi and passed the candied haws in her hand. Feng Shi's cold face was filled with alertness when she saw her approaching, and he even took a few steps back. But at the moment when Yi Qing Luo passed the candied haws to him, Feng Shi seemed to have reacted as he raised his head abruptly and stared at Yi Qing Luo, who was shrouded in a black robe. He stared at her with his big round eyes, as though he was trying to confirm something. Yi Qing Luo looked at Feng Shi with some astonishment. This lad recognized her? She had disguised herself so well. And she was actually recognized? Feng Shi suddenly grabbed her arm with her small hand and moved her face closer, trying to see Su Qingsong's face under the black robe. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly raised her hand and pressed on Feng Shi's shoulder. Under the black robe, a pair of long and narrow eyes were revealed as he blinked at Feng Shi. Then, he disappeared into the darkness. Yi Qing Luo took 2 steps back and stood firmly behind Ling Long. Feng Shi stood rooted to the spot. Ling Long looked at Feng Shi in confusion. Then, she glanced sideways at the attendant behind her. Shao Qi, what's going on? Your subordinate does not know. A deep and husky voice came out from Yi Qing Luo's mouth. Ling Long's gaze moved back and forth between the two of them for a while. Then, he fixed his gaze on Feng Shi. Do you like my attendant? The dumbfounded little person turned his head stiffly. Upon hearing Ling Long's words, Zhang Xian frowned. He subconsciously took a glance at Yi Qing Luo. However, Feng Shi was the legitimate grandson of the Feng family. Very quickly, he adjusted his train of thought. Fairy Sister must have dressed up like this to save him. With Fairy Sister here, he didn't need to be afraid. Thinking like this, the vigilance on Feng Shi's face faded a little. She pretended not to know Yi Qing Luo at all and asked directly, Who are you? What do you want to do? Ling Long didn't ask about Feng Shi's strange behavior when she saw her servant. She heard that the little dumpling was willing to respond to her. She was in a good mood and gave a rare smile. I am Princess Ling Long here. Everyone has to listen to me, including you. The little girl raised her chin, apparently very complacent. Feng Shi looked at her suspiciously. Really? Everyone listens to you? Chapter 48-78. A poor person with no friends. Ling Long crossed her arms. Why? Are you doubting me? Feng Shi asked again. Then you said, You can let me out, is that true? Of course. Ling Long was delighted. Who dares to disobey my order? Feng Shi pursed her lips, seemingly considering. After a while, she raised her head. What do you want me to do? Ling Long walked straight over. Feng Shi took a step back, then took a look at where Yi Qing Luo was standing. Finally, he stood still and let Ling Long put her hand on his shoulder. Ling Long's smile widened. I don't need you to be a master, I just want you to play with me. Feng Shi. Play? Did he hear it wrong? This little princess actually wanted him to play with her? Play what? Play with his life? Linglong looked at the lad's shocked expression and smiled calmly. Yes, this princess wants you to play with this princess. Fengshi stood still. From the corner of his eyes, he glanced at the small hand on his shoulder. Fair and slender. It looked even smaller than his hand. He swallowed. How do you want me to play with you? Play with me like how you usually play, said Linglong. Fengshi was stunned, her face drooping. I don't have friends. Linglong was stunned too. A look of disappointment appeared on her delicate and pretty little face. You are the same as this princess, a pitiful person without friends? She said the last 4 words very softly. Almost inaudible, but it clearly floated into Fengshi's ears. He seemed to understand something. This princess, who looked unruly and extremely confident and flamboyant. She looked beautiful on the surface, but the pain in her heart was no less than ordinary people. As the grandson of the Feng family, Fengshi, he understood Linglong's feelings very well. They were high up and unreachable. They wanted something. As long as they asked, someone would do it for them. But it wasn't them who worked hard for what they wanted. What was the point of such a life? No friends around him? No, there were some. It was just that those so-called friends were only getting close to him because of the warnings of the elders of the family. Actually, those people must hate him. She didn't want to play with him at all. He has no friends. Apart from Grandpa and Granny Phoenix, there was only boundless loneliness left in his life. Presumably, Princess Linglong was probably the same as well. He was only 6 years old. However, his mentality was like that of an old man in his 70s. Fengshi blinked her big eyes and looked at Linglong seriously. If you keep your word, I can be your friend. Linglong's eyes lit up. You're the one who said it. Then we are friends now. Yi Qing Luo. He looked at the 2 children in the room with a dumbfounded expression. They shook hands and looked at each other. Then they played together. Yi Qing Luo, since when did her Sisi become such a brat who easily messed around with others? What happened to being autistic? His mind was flooded with messages. Yi Qing Luo didn't show it on her face. Looking at the 2 little ones, they laughed and played around. She slowly walked to the door and stood still, acting as a backdrop. This was also to prevent anyone from coming in. Interrupting her Sisi's honey trap, to cultivate feelings with Linglong. Chapter 48-79. Outside the door, they could faintly hear the voices of the secluded palace's disciples or attendants. Princess Linglong seems to be smiling very happily? That wimpy brat is so hard to please. Why is he not making a fuss now? Why is Princess Linglong looking for that wimpy brat? Why is it so lively inside? This is the first time we've heard Princess Linglong smiling so happily. The secluded palace's disciples were also gossipy. Perhaps it's because Princess Linglong had never seen anyone younger or similar in age to her. An attendant spoke calmly. Princess Linglong heard that Elder Su had kidnapped a child, so she hurried over. That attendant paused slightly before continuing. She heard that the other party wanted to eat candied haws, so she brought her favorite candied haws along. The secluded palace's disciples nodded their heads in realization. That's true. His lordship had never allowed Princess Linglong to interact with the outside world. Princess Linglong indeed had never interacted with anyone other than us. No wonder Princess Linglong took the initiative to look for her. Forget it, it's just 2 kids and Xiao Qi is guarding over there, so nothing will happen. Let Princess Linglong play with that wimpy brat for a while. Yi Qing Luo heard those people's discussions outside the door as her slender eyes squinted slightly. Then, he shifted his gaze to the smiling Linglong. She sighed. This Linglong should be the daughter of the mastermind behind the secluded palace? And the mastermind behind the secluded palace valued her a lot. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been nurtured into such a character. But, keeping her in the secluded palace, not allowing her to come into contact with the outside world. This was like keeping a canary in a cage. Was it really purely because of care? Yiqing Luo didn't quite understand this care. Look at the current Ling Long. She was so adorable and her smile was beautiful. Her mannerisms, speech were all spoiled and willful. Probably because of the circle she came into contact with. Only the secluded palace. And the people in the secluded palace were all respectful towards her. So much so, when Ling Long saw that Feng-shi was treating her differently from the others, she couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. Not only would she not be angry, she felt interesting. Let the two of them play for a while. Yiqing Luo looked around unknowingly, scanning the surroundings. He memorized all the furnishings in the room. In his mind, he made a plan to leave. From time to time, people would walk past the door. But no one approached the door. Yiqing Luo had not received any news from Zhu Wuxian. About an hour later, the two little dumplings that were playing together were also tired. At this moment, they were sitting on the ground with their backs against each other, resting with their eyes closed. It had been a long time since the two of them had such happiness. Just as the peaceful and harmonious atmosphere was spreading intensely. Suddenly, he heard a low shout, "What are you guys doing here?" Elder Su. The greetings of the Dark Abyss Palace disciples came from outside. Elder Su strode over. "Where is Feng family's tiny tot?" "He's inside." The disciple of Dark Palace answered respectfully. "No, but just stay inside." Elder Su interrupted the disciple and waved his hand. He pushed the door open and walked into the room. Chapter 4880. Elder Su. Yiqing Luo mimicked the greetings from the secluded palace's disciples outside. A black robe covered her entire body, leaving no gap. This Elder Su in front of her. He was the black-robed man who had appeared at the Feng family's courtyard and kidnapped Feng-shi. Elder Su took a glance at Yiqing Luo. "Why are you here?" He didn't wait for Yiqing Luo's reply. He walked straight in. When he saw the two of them sitting back to back, his expression changed. "Princess Ling Long, what are you doing here?" This exclamation. It made the two who were tired of playing open their eyes. When Ling Long saw Elder Su, a sliver of impatience surfaced on her face. "Elder Su, what are you shouting about? This is my territory. Do I need Elder Su's permission to go wherever I want?" Elder Su's expression froze. "Princess Ling Long, I'm just concerned about you." "I'm fine, I don't need your concern." Ling Long gave him a disdainful glance. Then she stretched her waist and stood up slowly. Feng-shi also stood up and stared at Elder Su with vigilance. There was a hint of fear on her face. Ling Long saw Feng-shi's action and patted his shoulder. "I'm here, what are you afraid of? I will protect you." "Princess Ling Long." Elder Su frowned and called out unhappily, "That's the person his lordship wants. This princess likes him." Ling Long raised her head. "He belongs to this princess. This princess will ask Imperial Father for him." "Princess Ling Long." Elder Su's expression sunk. "His lordship will not agree to your request. You are Princess Ling Long, you shouldn't be involved with these people. Whether he agrees or not is up to Father, it has nothing to do with you." Ling Long's expression turned cold. "Or, Elder Su thinks that you can replace Father's thoughts?" "I don't dare." When Elder Su heard that, his expression changed as he lowered his head. If he were to wear this high hat on his head, if it reached his lordship's ears, that was regardless of whether he had ulterior motives. Even his lordship would not tolerate him. Ling Long snorted coldly, extremely arrogant. Then, she raised her chin and asked arrogantly, "What are you doing here? Did Father ask you to bring him over?" "No." The veins on Elder Su's forehead bulged, but he managed to suppress them. "I just came to check on his condition." Ling Long raised her brows. "Since Lord Father doesn't intend to summon Cece, then let Cece follow this princess first." "Princess Ling Long, you mustn't do that." Elder Su glanced at Feng Shi and said, "His identity is rather special. He's under the strict supervision of the Lord, so there's no room for any mistakes." "You mean to say something will happen to him if he hangs around this princess?" Linglong sneered. Her exquisite and beautiful face was filled with arrogance. "In your eyes, this princess is a troublemaker? This subordinate dares not think so." Elder Su gritted his teeth as he spoke. The expression on his face was frozen. However, the words that came out of his mouth seemed to be for her sake. "This subordinate is just worried that boy is too cunning and will deceive you, your highness, and hurt your heart. But I like him." Linglong had no intention of compromising. As a result, in the end, Elder Su was the only one who compromised. After all, this was the princess that the Lord doted on the most. Elder Su agreed to let Feng Shi follow Linglong. However, it was only limited to this underground palace. Chapter 48-81. Elder Su took a step back. Linglong naturally took a step back as well. In this underground palace, so be it. Anyway, no matter where it was, as long as she could play with Cici, it was fine. Linglong didn't care. But Feng Shi's face turned pale. "Princess Linglong, you promised me." She promised to let him go. Why did she agree to Elder Su's words now? The range of activity was limited to this underground palace? What was the difference between locking him up? Linglong held Feng Shi's hand and walked out of the room. The lights in the huge underground palace weren't bright but not dark either. The candles hung on the walls lengthened their shadows. Linglong asked with a serious expression, "Aren't you out now?" "Feng Shi, you tricked me? I like you, why would I trick you?" Linglong frowned. "Didn't I do what I promised you?" Let him go. Now, he had indeed left the house where he was being held captive. These words, there was nothing wrong with it. Feng Shi pursed her lips, unwilling to speak. Elder Su took a look at Feng Shi and then at the arrogant princess, who didn't fly into a rage like usual even though Feng Shi had given him a cold shoulder. He retracted his gaze and looked at the other disciples. "Watch carefully, if you lose sight of him, all of you will die." "Yes." The disciples of the Nether Palace were trembling in fear as they replied respectfully. Elder Su flicked his sleeves and left. Linglong grabbed Feng Shi's hand. "Let's go, I'll bring you to my room to play, there are many fun things inside." Before she could finish her words, Feng Shi swung her hand and slapped Linglong's hand away. Her little face was filled with anger. "I don't want to play with you." Without any warning, Linglong was slapped away and staggered back a step. Yiqing Luo supported her from behind in time. She was a little girl who had been pampered since young. Just one slap. A large red patch appeared on Linglong's fair and tender skin. It looked extremely shocking. The expressions of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness disciples changed, and they rushed to Linglong. "How dare you? How dare you hurt Princess Linglong?" Immediately, other disciples of the Palace of Darkness lifted Feng Shi up. Just as he was about to slap her, "Stop!" Linglong's expression turned slightly cold. She reprimanded and lashed her whip at the disciple who slapped her. She said with a cold face, "Did I ask you to do it? Get lost." The Darkness Palace disciple who was whipped and the other disciples all took 2 steps back and lowered their heads in apology. Linglong snorted coldly and looked back at Feng Shi. She stuffed the whip into Yiqing Luo's hand and strode over to Feng Shi. "Why are you angry with me?" She was arrogant and unreasonable when facing the disciples of the Dark Palace. When he looked at Feng Shi, there was nothing left. She patiently continued, "I like you, but that doesn't mean you can trample on my good intentions." Feng Shi gritted her teeth. She had tricked him with words. Why did it sound like it was his fault? Just as he was about to say something, out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of the black-robed young lady behind Linglong. She shook her head at him. The words in Feng Shi's mouth stopped. She lowered her head and said in a muffled voice, "I want to leave this place." Linglong walked closer to him. I want to leave too." "Aren't you a princess? Why can't you leave?" Feng Shi asked. Linglong said. "Other than leaving the restricted area that my father has set for me, I can't go anywhere else." Chapter 4882. "You're my first friend, then you're such a pitiful princess." Feng Shi was stunned. She raised her eyes and saw the melancholy in Linglong's eyes. All of the anger he felt just now had dissipated in an instant. Linglong chuckled, but that smile didn't reach her eyes and couldn't disperse the sadness in her eyes. "Yes, I have the respect and power of a princess, so I have to bear the price of enjoying the treatment of a princess." At this moment, she had already addressed herself as "I, not this princess." "Here, besides father, no one dares to criticize or disobey me, but similarly, what I have to pay is my freedom." Linglong slowly held Feng Shi's little hand. "You're my first friend." Feng Shi was still in a daze. The hand that held his was very warm, like the sun, shining on him warmly. Feng Shi's heart skipped a beat as her clear eyes stared unblinkingly at the little girl in front of her. After some time, he held Linglong's hand back. "You're my first friend too." Linglong's brows relaxed, that pair of beautiful eyes curved into a beautiful arc. "So, other than letting you leave this place, I can promise you anything you want." As she said that, she bent down slightly and got close to Feng Shi's ear. "I will beg father to let you off." Feng Shi was still in a daze when Linglong brought her to this underground palace, to her room. The princess's room was much more luxurious and exquisite than the room where Feng Shi was locked up, and it was filled with children's favorite toys, sweets and snacks. She could tell. Linglong was indeed a doted palace mistress. She sent the two little dumplings back to their room. Yiqing Luo was about to step into the room. Her wrist was pulled. "Shao Qi, what are you doing?" Yiqing Luo stopped in her tracks, looking at the person who was pulling her back in a daze. It was Linglong's attendant. Yiqing Luo deliberated on how to answer the attendant. She heard him continue, "No one is allowed to enter Princess Linglong's room. While Princess Linglong is in a good mood, don't let her find out." Yiqing Luo silently retracted her leg. "Princess Linglong sure has a lot of problems." She pursed her pink lips and quickly scanned Linglong's room through the black robe. If Feng Shi stayed here, there shouldn't be any danger. She left the room and closed the door. Outside the door, the group of attendants finally heaved a sigh of relief. They leaned against the wall and sat unsteadily. "Princess Linglong seems to be in a good mood today. As long as we serve her carefully, we should be able to survive until tomorrow's shift. That brat just now scared me to death." He actually dared to reject Princess Linglong. Luckily, Princess Linglong is quite fond of that little brat. Otherwise, we will all be implicated. After today, we'll be able to change shifts soon." In front of others, the servants were cold and aloof, like orderly puppets. At this moment, they were all grumbling softly. Yiqing Luo casually found a place to sit down as she listened to the attendants' discussions. He roughly understood. Just how bad was Linglong's reputation? The servants described her as an evil woman who had crawled out of hell. Unruly, willful, cruel, and bloodthirsty. Killing without batting an eyelid. Yiqing Luo listened with a face of suspicion. Although the cute and pretty little princess was a little unreasonable, she was still a little arrogant. But it was not to the extent using vicious words like killing people like flax, cruel and bloodthirsty to describe her? Chapter 4883. How bad was Princess Linglong's reputation? Yiqing Luo also found out. They were Princess Linglong's servants, and they worked in shifts. About 20 over people, 6 people would be chosen daily to take care of Princess Linglong. Every time the servants took care of Princess Linglong, there was a risk of losing their lives. Their lives depended on Princess Linglong's mood. So they took care of Princess Linglong. They were all on tenterhooks, afraid that they would lose their lives. The few of them were ridiculing. Suddenly one of the servants looked at Yiqing Luo. "Number 7, why are you so quiet today? Aren't you the one who said the most powerful?" Yiqing Luo, who was called out, She only wanted to be a quiet background. He was the seventh son of the emperor. Couldn't she know her place earlier? How was she going to maintain her image as the seventh servant? She felt like she was going to fall off the horse. Yiqing Luo's heart roared as her brain worked quickly, suppressing her voice. Today, Princess Linglong seems to be very happy. That's not true. The servant waved his hand. This is the first time Princess Linglong interacted with a wimpy kid from the outside world. Princess Linglong should have treated him as her little toy. From what I see, Princess Linglong got a new toy and is so happy that she can't bear to part with it. Number 7. Someone came over and sized up Yiqing Luo suspiciously. Princess Linglong is happy with a new toy. What has it got to do with you not grumbling or being afraid? Even though they were separated by a black robe, Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the other party's gaze, examining her. Yiqing Luo was extremely calm as her voice was deep. Because, I am different from what you think. She waved away that person's hand and looked towards the tightly shut door. Princess Linglong today, when she smiles, she looks very beautiful. Servants. So, looks were justice? Because Princess Linglong smiled beautifully. So she couldn't even bear to grumble? Suddenly, squeak, the room door was opened. A young girl dressed in an exquisite long dress stood at the door. Princess Linglong. The servants were so shocked that they jumped up from the ground and hurriedly stood up straight respectfully. Linglong's beautiful big eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo, unable to tell the emotions within. The attendants held their breath. He was afraid that if he was not careful, his life would be taken by this unruly and headstrong princess. Linglong's vision stared at Yiqing Luo for some time. You said, "This princess is very beautiful?" Princess Linglong, this is what she said. "It has nothing to do with us." The attendants immediately voiced out to clarify their relationship. However, Linglong did not even bother to look at them. He only stared deeply at Yiqing Luo as he repeated his question. Say it one more time. Yiqing Luo's slightly drooping head slowly lifted up. Through the black robe, Yiqing Luo could see the sparkling light in the young and beautiful little princess's eyes. It was as dazzling as a luminous pearl. Yiqing Luo's pink lips moved as she said word by word. If Princess smiles more often, you will definitely be more beautiful. As soon as he finished speaking, the attendants behind him all gasped in shock. He was quite frightened. This old seventh couldn't be crazy, right? She actually raised her opinion to Princess Linglong? She was going to cause them to die. However, they trembled as they waited for a long time. They didn't see Princess Linglong getting angry. On the contrary, Princess Linglong turned around and walked into the room. She even said, Chapter 4884. She even said, "You, come in with me." Looking at Linglong's departing figure, the few attendants behind her lowered their voices. "You're in trouble for being targeted by Princess Linglong." "Alright, stop talking. If Princess Linglong hears you, you'll be called in too." Number 7, I wish you good luck. Yiqing Luo entered Linglong's room while the few of them were discussing. The door had just closed. Linglong's voice was heard. "During this period of time, you have to report to me every day." Which meant that she, little 7, could not participate in the shift system. Yiqing Luo naturally had no objections. When she heard that there was a shift system, she had been thinking about how she could avoid it. Before she could think of a foolproof way to bring Feng Shi out from the underground palace of the secluded palace. It was much safer to stay by Linglong's side. Towards the habits of these attendants in the secluded palace, she didn't know if she was really put on shift, together with a group of familiar attendants. The possibility of her being exposed was too high. Still staying by Linglong's side. Presumably, Linglong had no idea what kind of character her own attendant had. Moreover, children were easier to fool. Yiqing Luo was satisfied, yes. Time passed by quickly. A day had passed. Feng Shi stayed in Linglong's room directly. Yiqing Luo, the attendant who was appointed to serve her personally, also stayed in Linglong's room and didn't leave. The relationship between the two little dumplings, after a day of interaction, they had really opened their hearts. They treated each other as their confidants. It was probably because Yiqing Luo had protected Linglong in an absolutely protective manner. Or perhaps Feng Shi liked her more. Linglong's attitude towards her was considered quite good. When the two of them were fooling around, or when the other attendants served exquisite delicacies, they were all invited to have their meals together. That was for a servant. In the secluded palace, it was the highest honor. The others originally thought that this number 7 was going to be dismembered by Princess Linglong. But they had not expected. In just a short few hours, number 7 foot had already gained Princess Linglong's recognition. He knew that. Princess Linglong liked it when people complimented her. They were praising him too much. It was too late for regrets. But there was no chance for regret. On the round mahogany table, the two little dumplings sat side by side, obediently eating the food in their bowls. Yiqing Luo sat beside Feng Shi. While serving the two little dumplings, "Cici, do you like the food here?" Linglong asked as she bit her wooden chopsticks and watched Feng Shi eat obediently without saying a word. Feng Shi put down her chopsticks and wiped her mouth. Then, she looked at Linglong and said, "Delicious. If Cici likes it, I'll get the kitchen to make it for you every day." Linglong smiled. Feng Shi blinked her big eyes and then lowered her head slightly. "But I won't be able to eat it soon. As long as this princess is around, you can eat whatever you want." Linglong's vision shot towards Yiqing Luo. "Remember what Cici wants to eat, go prepare it." Princess Linglong. Yiqing Luo also put down her chopsticks. Young Master Feng should not be because he wants to eat anything. She didn't beat around the bush as she continued. Young Master Feng is a hostage that Master specially instructed Elder Su to lock up here. A day has already passed, and the Lord should soon send news back and have someone take young Master Feng away. Chapter 4885. That's why young Master Feng feels that he won't be able to eat it soon. After a day of interaction, Yiqing Luo had some understanding towards this unruly little princess. You and her went around in circles. She absolutely couldn't understand the twists and turns. She couldn't figure out what you were hinting at. She could only point it out directly. Linglong then understood. The moment she said that, the entire room fell into silence. Linglong's hand, which was holding the wooden chopsticks, froze as she slammed it heavily on the table. "I will not let father take Cici away." Yiqing Luo met Linglong's sullen gaze as she spoke in a considerate tone. "Princess Linglong, I don't have any other intentions, I just want to remind you. In case Master wants to take young Master Feng away and Princess Linglong can't accept it, thus hurting the harmony between you two. Even if you tell me now, I can't accept it." Linglong's exquisite and beautiful face turned serious as she looked at Feng Shi seriously. "I want Cici to stay by my side, to be my playmate for life. Princess Linglong's idea is good." Yiqing Luo's voice gradually became gentle. "But, Princess Linglong, have you ever thought?" Under the black robe, the young lady's gaze was very gentle. "Is young Master Feng willing?" Linglong was just about to reply confidently. "How would he dare to not comply with my request? I like him so much, he will definitely like me too, what's there to be unwilling about?" But when she saw Feng Shi's slightly gloomy eyes, she swallowed back the words that were on the tip of her tongue. She spat out 3 words, but she didn't say anything else. That's right, how would Cici agree to accompany her in this dark place for life? She couldn't force anyone. But she couldn't force herself to be her first friend. Although she had never made friends before. But she also knew that friends couldn't be forced. Yiqing Luo looked at their silent expressions as she eased the atmosphere. "Princess Linglong, do you know the reason why Master kidnapped young Master Feng? If you know the reason, perhaps you can let young Master Feng stay by your side safe and sound." "I don't know," Linglong hung her head in defeat. My father has never allowed me to ask about him. Yi Qing Luo consoled him. Young Master Feng is after all the Feng family's direct grandson, so Master shouldn't be too overboard. No. I'm going to find my father. Linglong suddenly slammed the table and stood up. Cici is my friend. I can't let royal father hurt Cici. Saying that, she didn't wait for Yi Qing Luo's reply or Feng Shi's reaction. He hurriedly walked out of the door. That was called valiant and high-spirited. Yi Qing Luo. This little princess was really a doer. He was in a hurry. Princess Linglong, where are you going? Princess Linglong, Princess Linglong. Outside the door, the servants called out. Linglong walked very quickly. He completely ignored them. The attendants and the disciples of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness, who were guarding at the side, found it strange. He pushed open the door. He saw Yi Qing Luo dressed in a black robe standing beside the mahogany table. Feng Shi, on the other hand, was sitting in front of a table full of delicacies, swinging her little feet. Number 7. The attendants shouted outside the door. Yi Qing Luo turned around and said calmly, Princess Linglong went to look for Master and ordered me to look after young Master Feng. This excuse. There was no flaw. The attendants didn't ask any further. They closed the door again and stood guard outside. Fairy sister. There were no outsiders around. Feng Shi immediately jumped down from the chair and hugged Yi Qing Luo's leg. Chapter 48-86. Yi Qing Luo bent over and carried Feng Shi in her arms, sizing him up. Are you hurt anywhere? Feng Shi shook his head. Even if they locked me up, they wouldn't dare to touch me. Yi Qing Luo poked his forehead. I heard that you've created quite a ruckus here. In the house where he was locked up, everything was smashed to smithereens. It even made those secluded palaces' disciples fly into a rage. They even compromised and went out to buy candied haws. Feng Shi was probably the only one who could enjoy such treatment. But the attitude of the secluded palace's disciples. On the contrary, it made Yi Qing Luo feel uneasy. This was enough to tell. The mastermind of the secluded palace needed Feng Shi. What did the mastermind of the secluded palace want to do to Feng Shi? What did he need Feng Shi to do? Yi Qing Luo suppressed the suspicions in her heart as she rubbed Feng Shi's head. Sister is here, I'll bring you out soon. She paused and lowered her voice. Princess Linglong likes you very much. If you keep following Princess Linglong, she can protect you. When she mentioned Linglong, the smile on the little man's face gradually faded. He pursed his lips as he drooped his head. His forehead rested on Yi Qing Luo's shoulder. His voice sounded a little gloomy. Fairy sister, I don't want to lie to her. Yi Qing Luo knew that the her he was referring to was Linglong. Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly. Cici also likes Princess Linglong? Amen. Feng Shi nodded without hesitation. Princess Linglong treats me sincerely, I don't want to lie to her. All right. Yi Qing Luo had no intention to refute as she gently rubbed the little dumpling's head. Cici, do whatever you want to do. Feng Shi suddenly raised his head. Her black and white eyes were sparkling. He grinned as his eyes curved. Amen? All the uneasiness and unhappiness in the bottom of his heart had completely dissipated. But, Cici, we have to leave this place. Yi Qing Luo's vision looked towards the tightly shut door. Princess Linglong isn't around and the attendants and secluded palace's disciples outside all think that I'm guarding you. This is our best chance to leave. She reached out and pinched Feng Shi's nose. Cici, are you leaving? The smile on Feng Shi's face, which had just appeared, slowly faded away. He looked at Yi Qing Luo in a daze. Then, he glanced at the room that was filled with Linglong's aura. He had just made up his mind to reveal his identity and Yi Qing Luo's identity to Linglong. I want to tell her. He also sincerely wanted to be friends with her. I want to tell her. He wanted to take her out of this dark place and let her see other colors in the world. But he couldn't. even if he didn't know what kind of place this underground palace was. But it was also clear. This place was fraught with danger. Fairy's sister came here to save him. He was definitely taking a huge risk. Now was the best chance to leave. I missed it. I'm afraid it's not just him who can't leave this place. Even Fairy's sister would be implicated by him. He could not be so selfish. Although he was small, his thoughts were extremely mature. In the blink of an eye, he used a clear and resolute gaze to look at her. Fairy's sister, I'll leave with you. He paused slightly, but before this, I want to tell her that I really treat her as my friend. Yi Qing Luo touched his head. Go on. This was the little dumpling's first friend. Chapter 4887. Yi Qing Luo couldn't deprive Feng Shi of the joy of making her first friend. And Linglong, that girl, wasn't a bad person. To Linglong, Xiao Tuanzi was also her first friend. If she could, Yi Qing Luo quite liked that the two of them could play together. It would be best if Feng Shi could change Linglong's spoiled and willful temper. Feng Shi took out a piece of paper and wrote down what he wanted to tell Linglong seriously. Every stroke was written in an extremely serious manner. Until he checked it 3 times. He then put down the pen. He placed the paper that was filled with words under Linglong's pillow. Fairy sister, I'm done. Feng Shi ran back to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo patted his little shoulder. Have you decided? Feng Shi nodded vigorously. The little girl's black and white eyes were filled with seriousness and solemnity. I know that Grandpa is worried about me, and I also know that Fairy's sister took a huge risk to save me. I can't be willful and only think about myself. He wanted to accompany his first friend. To accompany the friend who was alone other than him. But now it wasn't the time. He couldn't because of the importance he attached to friendship, regardless of the others. He believed Princess Linglong would understand him. Yi Qing Luo carried her with one hand. My little Cece, you've really grown up. She pinched the little boy's face. I'll bring you out now. Hold on tight to me. No matter what happens, don't make a sound. Can you do that? Feng Shi nodded vigorously. Her little hands circled Yi Qing Luo's neck. Cece will not be a burden to Fairy's sister. Be good. Yi Qing Luo carried Feng Shi and returned to the other side of the room. The Palace of Darkness really loved Linglong to the core. In this dungeon, which should be for the Jiang family's aristocrats, there was an extremely luxurious room specially built. Outside the window on the other side of Linglong's room was a flower bed. Under the bright luminous pearl, those transplanted flowers were in full bloom, bright purple and red. Extremely beautiful. Behind the flower bed, there was a towering wall. Yi Qing Luo brought Feng Shi over the garden and climbed over the wall. When she looked down, below them was a pitch-black tunnel. He seemed to have returned to the tunnel that he had passed through before coming here. The other end of Linglong's room was actually connected to this passage. If he followed the path, he would be able to leave the underground palace. She could leave the underground palace now. However, what about Zhu Wuxin? Hiding a servant for such a long time. With Zhu Wuxin's skills, he shouldn't be discovered by those people from Dark Nether Palace. Even if they found out, he could also escape. However, now she had left with Feng Shi. Would Zhu Wuxin think that she was in this underground palace and was looking for her everywhere? When Yi Qing Luo thought of this, her brows creased tightly into a bundle. How troublesome! Forget it, I'll send Feng Shi out first. Yi Qing Luo took a look at the tunnel below. He was about to jump down. Suddenly, he heard a panicked roar from behind him. Oh no! The little brat from the Feng family is gone. And 7th. What happened? Quick! Hurry up and find him. The footsteps of the Dark Abyss Palace disciples and servants got closer. Oh no, they had been discovered. How could it be so fast? Yi Qing Luo's pink lips pursed tightly as she lowered her head to look at the little one in her arms. Cece, hold on tight. Chapter 4888. Feng Shi responded with an N. Yi Qing Luo leaped up and landed lightly on the ground. Following that, she walked along the tunnel. It was pitch black inside the tunnel. She couldn't see the surrounding path. Yiqing Luo walked a few steps and sensed. Not right. When she came here, she specially constructed a map of the tunnel's topography in her mind as she walked. If she walked through it again, she would definitely feel a sense of familiarity. But the tunnel she was walking on now, the feeling was totally different. This tunnel wasn't the tunnel to leave the underworld. Yiqing Luo suddenly recalled the fork in the road when she came over. Could it be the tunnel she was walking on now? Was it another fork in the road? But now it was basically impossible for her to turn back. The Palace of Darkness's disciples would not give her this chance. She could only move forward. Yiqing Luo walked forward quickly. While she was moving forward quickly, she could clearly hear footsteps from all directions, and the sound of the Palace of Darkness's disciples exchanging information. In front, she could faintly see a bit of light. Yiqing Luo quietly got closer. To his surprise, he realized that the passageway led to a huge courtyard. In this cold and gloomy underground cave, there was an inexplicable strange feeling. This place. What place was this? In this underground palace, why did they have to specially build such a courtyard that required so much time, effort, and money? Who was the person who stayed in this courtyard? Yiqing Luo recalled that Ling Long seemed to be the one who came from this tunnel. Could it be the person in the courtyard was the mastermind behind the Palace of Darkness? Yiqing Luo's eyes wavered slightly. This side. Do you want to go take a look? That's a forbidden area. But we searched the entire underground palace and didn't find Feng family's brat and number 7. The disciples guarding the entrance of the underground prison didn't see the both of them leaving. Perhaps they are hiding here. Behind them, the Palace of Darkness's disciples' voices were getting closer. They were still feeling uneasy, hesitating if they should come over to search. Yiqing Luo heard their discussion as her heart started to pound. This was a forbidden area? There was actually a forbidden area in the Palace of Darkness's base? What kind of secret or treasure was hidden here? Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows slightly, held Feng Shi tightly, and jumped into the courtyard. Forbidden areas were the best places to hide. It was the moment she jumped into the courtyard. Footsteps could be heard from outside the courtyard. The disciples of Gloomy Palace caught up. Are we going in? I don't think so. What if the person is really hiding inside? Elder Su said that if we lose sight of him, all of us will have to die with him. Either way, I'll die. Let's go in. The disciples of Darkness Palace chattered for a long time outside the courtyard. In the end, he decided, enter Yiqing Luo's current position. It was very close to the courtyard gate. As long as those people came in, she would definitely be discovered. But the place where she was standing now was a little awkward. The ground was covered with a thick layer of withered yellow leaves. All she had to do was lift her foot slightly and put it down. The rustling of leaves was extremely obvious. When those people heard it, they would be able to detect her position. The Palace of Darkness's disciples got closer to the courtyard gate bit by bit. From the footsteps, there were about 10 over of them. Yiqing Luo's heart started to race. The courtyard gate, slowly, was pushed open. Chapter 48-89. 10 over figures walked into the courtyard uneasily. They just needed to take another 2 steps forward. Just a side glance and there was a possibility. Her. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers pressed on Feng Shi's head. She was silently guessing in her heart whether there would be a chance for Feng Shi to escape later. Just as the dozen or so figures entered the courtyard and were about to look around, her body suddenly felt light. Her mouth was covered by someone. She was dragged onto the big tree branch behind her. The leaves rustled. This attracted the attention of the secluded palace's disciples. Under the dim illumination of the luminous pearl, the leaves swayed along with the chilly wind. The rustling sound of the leaves rubbing against each other could be heard. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. It's just the wind, nothing, nothing. What nonsense! Yiqing Luo's heart was roaring like a dragon. Her mouth was covered and she couldn't even make a sound. The secluded palace's disciples were still scurrying around. She didn't dare to struggle or move. Until the secluded palace's disciples went around the courtyard and searched one round before leaving. Yiqing Luo then yanked away the hand covering her mouth. Zhu Wu Xian, why are you here? She was entirely shrouded in a black robe. Earlier, when she was dragged up the tree and covering her mouth, they were all separated by a black robe. But it still couldn't be concealed. A faint plum fragrance. It was a clear and cold aura unique to Zhu Wuxin. Zhu Wu Xian held Feng Shi steadily with one hand as he slowly retracted the other. Coincidence? Do you think I'll believe that? Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes, hiding an attendant. You've already disappeared and now you ran to this secluded area of the secluded palace. Yiqing Luo's slender eyes rose slightly as she tilted her head slightly. On the surface, you specially brought me to the secluded palace's base to save someone. In actual fact, you have your own motive. Zhu Wu Xian's thin lips moved, as though he wanted to say something. Under the dim and hazy light, that pair of icy cold, deep eyes were tainted with a thin sense of disappointment. But, in the end, he didn't say anything, as though he silently agreed with Yiqing Luo's words. Yiqing Luo leapt down from the tree and gathered the loose black robe around her. I'm not too concerned about what your motive is. I just want to know, are you going to leave this base of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness? You can't leave now. Zhu Wu Xian's voice was very calm. The disciples of Gloomy Palace will seal all the passages. Once you show yourself, you will fall into their trap. He paused for a moment before continuing. You should know very well that the Palace of Gloomy Shadows is best at all kinds of evil forbidden arts. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers clenched. Then we're just going to sit here and wait for death? Zhu Wuxin was silent for a moment. Let's hide here for now. When their guard loosens, I'll go lure them away. This was a forbidden area. The disciples of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness came around. He did not dare to do it a second time. It was indeed a relatively safe place at the moment. But there must be a reason why the forbidden grounds are called as such. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. Are you sure there's no problem for us to stay in this courtyard? Okay. Zhu Wuxin carried Feng Shi in his arms and walked toward the depths of the courtyard. Feng Shi had been taken away. Yiqing Luo had no other choice. She followed Zhu Wu Xian's footsteps as they stepped into the depths. In this courtyard, there were about 7 to 8 exquisitely decorated rooms. Every single room. The distance between each room was very far, as though it was an independent living space. Yiqing Luo followed Zhu Wu Xian and after a few turns, finally they stopped in front of a room. Zhu Wu Xian walked in calmly. Chapter 4890. Yiqing Luo looked at him as he opened the room's door with ease. With great precision, he placed Feng Shi on a chair in the dark. A strange feeling arose from the bottom of her heart. She frowned slightly as she stared at Zhu Wu Xian. This room is your room. Zhu Wu Xian's figure paused slightly as he poured the tea. But it was only for a moment. He continued to pass the teacup to Feng Shi as he replied Yiqing Luo, no. Not? Yiqing Luo's expression congealed slightly as a strange glint flashed past her eyes. She originally thought that Zhu Wu Xian's room was in the forbidden grounds of the secluded palace. However, Zhu Wuxin denied it. Zhu Wu Xian disdained to lie. What he said should be the truth. But if this place had nothing to do with Zhu Wu Xian, then why was Zhu Wu Xian so familiar with the structure of this room? Apparently, it wasn't his first time here. Zhu Wu Xian seemed to have seen through Yiqing Luo's doubts. In the dark, his eyes were as deep as the sea as he stared at her without blinking. It was quiet and serene, floating and sinking. This is Gu Jingyu's room. In the dark, the man's voice sounded especially hoarse and ethereal. Yiqing Luo went into a slight daze. Gu Jingyu? The mastermind behind the secluded palace. Disciple? The palace lord on the surface? This was his room? The so-called forbidden grounds in the secluded palace, indeed referred to. The place where the people with status in the secluded palace stayed? Like Gu Jingyu, Ling Long and the like. Then, the mastermind behind the secluded palace? That person can't possibly stay here. Zhu Wu Xian opened his mouth calmly as his voice sounded cold. Finishing his words, he sat down on another chair. Gu Jingyu isn't in the base. If the lights are lit, it will easily alert the servants in the courtyard. The room was dark. It wasn't so dark that one couldn't see their fingers in front of them, but it was slightly dim, and one could vaguely see the silhouette of a figure. Yiqing Luo walked slowly to Feng Shi's side and stood still as both her hands gently pressed on Feng Shi's shoulder. Seeing Feng Shi drinking the tea in the cup, she rubbed his head and asked Zhu Wu Xian, "Why do you know this place?" "I came here when I was discussing matters in the past," Zhu Wu Xian explained. In other words, he had been here before. He was referring to the time when they worked together with the Palace of Darkness. And now, he was innocent. Yiqing Luo nodded. "Then how long are we going to hide here?" "It's not convenient for you to bring a child with you now." Zhu Wuxin's expression was calm. "Wait until there are fewer people guarding the entrance before you leave." Yiqing Luo pursed her lips slightly and didn't reply. The room fell into a dead silence. Yiqing Luo looked at Feng Shi's exhausted look. He bent down and picked him up, wanting to let him sleep for a while. The next moment, Zhu Wuxin's hands were already stretched out. He picked up Feng Shi before her. "There's a bed over there." Yiqing Luo remained silent. He followed Zhu Wuxin into the inner room. Feng Shi had been a bit nervous, but after lying on the bed for a while, he fell asleep. Yiqing Luo sat by the bed as her gaze congealed on Feng Shi's sleeping face. Zhu Wuxin stood at the side. "You can also rest for a while and recuperate." "No need," Yiqing Luo replied indifferently. There wasn't much fluctuation in her tone. In the darkness, Zhu Wu Xian's eyes rippled slightly. His eyes, which were as deep as the sea, gazed deeply at the young lady. "You really want to cut off all relations with me?" he asked. Yiqing Luo didn't even raise her head. "There's no relationship between you and me." Chapter 48-91. Zhu Wu Xian scoffed lightly. There was a hint of cold mockery in her laughter. "Really?" His voice was hoarse and his emotions were unclear. "If a woman is heartless, she's really heartless." Yiqing Luo's expression remained unchanged. "I don't know about other women, but I'm indeed this heartless. So, you don't have to express your goodwill to me intentionally." She had no way to stop others from liking her and being obsessed with her. The only thing she could do was to reject. No matter if Zhu Wu Xian was obsessed with her in the past, or the current adoration, that wasn't important, because, no matter what kind of feelings, it had nothing to do with her. "But, this kind of you makes me like you even more." Zhu Wu Xian seemed as though he couldn't hear Yiqing Luo's rejection as he gave a low laugh. That murmur of a voice. It was filled with a strange charm. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as a strange feeling arose in her heart. But not waiting for Yiqing Luo to speak again, Zhu Wu Xian had already turned around. "Take a rest first, I'll go out and take a look." After Zhu Wu Xian left, there was only her and the sound-asleep Feng Shi left in the room. An unfamiliar place. An unfamiliar environment. Even though Zhu Wu Xian said that as long as there were no lights here, it would be very safe, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but pay attention to the surrounding environment. She didn't dare to let her guard down. In her mind, she had been rehearsing the plan to leave the underground palace, not knowing how long had passed. Ding! A soft sound was heard from afar. She could faintly see the lights shining brightly. The bright lights were getting nearer. Yiqing Luo's heart jolted violently. Someone came. She stood up alertly as she listened sharply to the movements outside. Orderly footsteps slowly got nearer. Yiqing Luo leaned close to the window. She could faintly see about 20 to 30 secluded palaces disciples directly passing by the house she was in as they headed forward. Those secluded palaces disciples' discussions were clearly transmitted into her ears. The underground palace is only so big, we've already searched the entire place and still can't find anyone. Don't tell me they really hid in this forbidden grounds? If they really hid in this forbidden grounds and offended that person in the main house, he would die even worse. That Feng family's disciple, Elder Su, said we must keep her alive. We have to find him before that person in the main house finds out. Just like that, we ran into the forbidden area again. If that person in the main house finds out, I'm afraid we won't be able to escape. What are you afraid of? Don't we have Princess Linglong to back us up? Just as he was speaking, Yiqing Luo heard a familiar voice ringing, "Search for this princess. Even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground, we have to find them." That was Princess Linglong. Princess Linglong's tender voice was filled with anger. Her voice was slightly sharp. So what if it's a forbidden area? If Royal Father blames me, this princess will bear the responsibility. Don't let go of any room. He searched every inch of the place. I will make it hard for them to escape even if they have wings. Those angry orders. This made Yiqing Luo's brows crease. From the looks of it, Linglong did not see the letter that Feng Shi had left for her. Linglong felt that Feng Shi had lied to her. Their sincere friendship had been fed to the dogs. So now all he could think of was, he caught her and Feng Shi. Yiqing Luo could sense it. Feng Shi would probably be sad for a period of time. To coax Linglong back would probably be a little difficult. But, before this, she had to pay attention. Would those secluded palaces' disciples really barge into this room to capture them? If they really came in, where would she hide if she took Feng Shi with her? Chapter 48-92. The noises outside got louder and louder. More and more people came. It seemed like all the disciples of the gloomy palace in the underground palace had gathered here. About half an hour later, the noises outside slowly became softer. Indistinctly, they heard Linglong's angry bellow, "What's the use of father keeping you bunch of rubbish? You can't even find 2 people. Search for this princess. Search clearly. Don't miss any spot." Linglong bellowed furiously. The bunch of secluded palace's disciples were trembling in fear. They were afraid that they would make Princess Linglong unhappy and become a target. And at this moment, an extremely low voice was heard from outside the door, "This room. Do you want to search?" The voice was very close. Yiqing Luo knew. This person was asking about the room. He was referring to the room she was in right now. Her heart thumped fiercely and she held her breath. And just as that secluded palace's disciple asked this question, the other secluded palace's disciples all turned silent. This room is Palace Lord's room. Palace Lord hates people touching his things. If Palace Lord knew that we had stepped into his room, I'm afraid. The secluded palace's disciples didn't finish their words, but everyone understood the meaning behind those words. Palace Lord had always been a loner. He wasn't close to anyone, and he hated anyone who got close to his turf. Previously, there was a female disciple who tried to sneak into Palace Lord's room. In the end, she was thrown out of the room. That female disciple ended up in a miserable state. After that, Palace Lord even got someone to clean up his room from top to bottom, as though it was tainted with something dirty. From now on, everyone knew about Palace Lord's mysophobia. There's no sound in the room, so it shouldn't be possible for him to be inside. Someone found an excuse. That Feng family's girl is so young, so she shouldn't know how to restrain her presence. If that brat is really hiding here, with so many of us here, how could we not sense his presence? Everyone nodded their heads in agreement. A group of people, ready to leave again. Yiqing Luo's heart didn't feel at ease because of this. As expected, the next moment she heard Linglong's voice nearing them. "What are you all standing here for? Have you checked that house? Princess Linglong, this is the palace master's room, a disciple of the abysmal palace reminded. So what if it's Brother Yu's room? Go in and check. Linglong directly dragged him into the room. If Brother Yu blames me, I will take responsibility. Bang! The door was slammed open. A loud sound of collision rang out. Yiqing Luo immediately stepped back and bent down to carry Fengxi. His gaze focused on the window at the side. Little by little, he carefully moved towards the window. Under Linglong's threatening gaze, the disciples of Abyss Palace entered the room uneasily. The flames flickered. Yiqing Luo could clearly see the reflection of a few figures outside. Step by step, he approached them. They were in the foyer. She's in the back room. They were only a few steps away. Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk slightly as she bent down slightly, preparing to leap out of the window. What are you doing? Suddenly, a melodious voice like a bell rang out. That voice was soft and gentle, yet it did not lose the charm of a mature woman. It was extremely pleasant to the ears. Moreover, it was filled with the dignity of a superior. The moment this voice was heard, the entire courtyard's voices stopped abruptly. Even the people outside the room froze on the spot, motionless. Chapter 48-93. Sister Qing Go. When Linglong heard that voice, her tone became much more obedient. The voice of the woman named Qing Go came again. What's with all the noise? The person that father caught ran away. I'm catching them, Linglong replied obediently. She was no longer as arrogant as before. Go ahead and catch them. Don't make a scene here, Qing Go said in a low voice. Go and get everyone back. Don't run into the courtyard. Sister Qing Go, Linglong said coquettishly. Those two people have angered me. I want them to pay the price. I've searched the entire underground palace but I can't find them. They must be hiding here. How would I not know if they are hiding here? Qing Ji's tone was even more stern. If you continue to make a scene, you can forget about staying in this base. Linglong sniffled in fear. She had never been wronged before. She felt aggrieved and indignant. How could he still care about the respect he had for the other party? Linglong harumphed. Do you think I don't know that you brought an outsider to hide in the courtyard behind father's back? Qing Ji's tone was low and threatening. Linglong was unmoved. He's a man, right? Sister Qing Go, you like him, right? But if this matter were to reach Royal Father's ears, guess what would happen to Royal Father? Are you threatening me? Qing Ji's tone was cold and murderous. Linglong was a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers. She was extremely fearless. I'm merely reminding Big Sis Qing Pigeon that no matter how much Imperial Father dotes on you, he will definitely not allow you to step on his bottom line. Good, very good. If you want to make a scene, go ahead. Qing Go was so angry that she laughed. I'll let you search here. I want to see what you can find out. Qing Ji's words made Linglong cower. She had forcefully brought the disciples of the Palace of Darkness to search the courtyard. He forcefully led the Dark Nether Palace disciples to search the courtyard. This was already a violation of his father's rules. It was a well-known forbidden area. Only she and her brothers and sisters could enter. The other disciples of the Palace of Darkness, including Elder Su and the others, were not allowed to enter. The other disciples of the Nether Palace, even Elder Su and the others, were not allowed to step in. She wanted to capture them and pretend that nothing had happened. They wanted to pretend that nothing had happened after arresting him. He did not expect to be caught red-handed by the pigeon. If Qing Pigeon told father, no matter how much her Lord Father pampered her in the palm of his hand, he would probably blame her. Linglong pondered for a moment. With a wave of his hand, he turned around and left. I'm not investigating anymore. Anyway, if he really ran into this forbidden area, Sister Qing Pigeon will have to take responsibility. I have nothing to worry about. With that, he led his men and left the courtyard in a grandiose manner. Silence gradually returned to the courtyard. Those messy auras and noisy footsteps had also disappeared. However, Yiqing Luo held Feng Shi in her arms and stood rooted to the ground, not moving at all. Because she could sense it. The woman named Qinggo. He did not leave. She was still standing at the open door. Even though there was a wall between them. Yiqing Luo seemed to be able to feel that. Qing Ji's line of sight was directed towards her. Moments later, Qinggo walked into the room. Yiqing Luo's heart jumped. What's the matter? What happened? Suddenly, a mellow voice which was like fine wine drifted into Yiqing Luo's ears in this quiet and spacious courtyard. It was just a simple sentence. It made Yiqing Luo's eyes widen. Her petite body suddenly tensed up. A whirlpool seemed to form beneath her eyes. Chapter 48-94. And at this moment Qinggo walked into the room. When she heard that voice, she immediately stopped in her tracks. Even her voice became high-pitched. It's just that the princess is fooling around. It's nothing serious. She left the room and closed the door. After that, she walked briskly towards the direction of the voice. The tone changed from Qinggo. And that briskly footstep. Yiqing Luo was sure. She was indeed like what Ling Long had said. Adoring that man. But Yiqing Luo's long eyelashes trembled slightly. She stood stiffly on the spot in a daze for some time. Until her arms which were hugging Feng Shi felt a little heavy. She then regained her senses and placed Feng Shi back on the bed. She sat back on the bed. Her long and narrow eyes were cold in the darkness, as though it had blended in with the ink. Did she hear wrongly? That voice earlier was familiar. Even if it was just one word, she could tell who it was. Diemo Xian. That was Diemo Xian's voice. Was it an illusion? Had she missed Diemo Xian too much and heard wrongly? Yiqing Luo kept trying to find excuses. But she was very clear. There was no way she could have heard Diemo Xian's voice wrongly. His voice was so familiar that it penetrated deep into her bones. Her heart was in a mess. Why was Diemo Xian in the base of secluded palace? If he was so close, why hadn't he gone to the Feng residence to look for her for such a long time? And what was the relationship between him and that lady named Qinggo? The more she thought, the more confused her thoughts became. Various kinds of melodramatic plots played in her mind. Of course, these melodramatic plots weren't because Diemo Xian had betrayed Chejiu or had fallen in love with someone else. She had 100% trust in Diemo Xian. But she couldn't control her imagination. Other ladies were obsessed with his peerless looks and forced him to marry her. No matter what Diemo Xian's reason was. He was alone, meeting a lady whom she didn't know. This was a huge mistake. Believing was one thing. However, it was another matter to feel unhappy in his heart. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers clenched into a fist. He continued to let his imagination run wild. She reckoned that she would have to demolish the house. No. She must go over personally and ascertain with her own eyes whether that person was Diemo Xian or not. If it really was Diemo Xian, let's see why he's here. Yiqing Luo glanced at Feng Shi and tapped her forehead with her fingertip. A faint wisp of profound light seeped into the center of Feng Shi's forehead. Then, she tucked him in and stood up. He flipped his palm. A snow-white dumpling was standing next to Feng Shi. Yiqing Luo patted its head lightly. Chi, I'll be right back. There was that farce just now. If nothing went wrong, this place should be safe. He asked Chi to stay here and watch over Feng Shi. If there was anything, she would know in time. Yiqing Luo's figure was like a ghost as she blended into the night. He didn't notice it. At the moment when she left, in a dark corner, a tall and straight figure stood there quietly, staring at the young girl's departing figure without blinking. The wind blows. The man's red robe was like fire, rippling. His thin lips curled into a cold arc with a faint smile. He was obviously smiling, but his whole body was emitting a cold intent. Yiqing Luo followed the memory of the voice just now. After Linglong's disturbance in the courtyard. It was very quiet now. There was no sign of anyone. There was no sign of anyone. Yiqing Luo's journey was smooth. There were many rooms here, and they were all pitch black. Chapter 48-95. Yiqing Luo passed through a few rooms. Her gaze locked onto the front. In the middle of the courtyard was the largest and most luxurious house. She could vaguely see the bright luminous pearl light, like a star in the dark night. It was there. Yiqing Luo stared at that huge house, but her footsteps slowly came to a halt. That familiar voice seemed to be reverberating in her mind. Over and over again, it reminded her, that was indeed Dmo Xian's voice. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes. Her gaze landed on the red ring on her slender fingertip. One could vaguely see a vivid and lifelike phoenix stretching its most beautiful figure on the blood jade-like ring. She gently stroked the ring. This profound phoenix ring was a mandarin duck ring like Dmo Xian's profound dragon ring. If Dmo Xian was really here, the profound phoenix ring should have some reaction. But now the profound phoenix ring had no reaction at all. This was why. Yiqing Luo curled her fingers tightly. Her gaze was on the profound phoenix ring, quietly staring for a while. She took a deep breath and moved toward the room again, without making a sound. Just as she got closer, Yiqing Luo heard a sound coming from inside the room. It was a woman's light footsteps and a gentle and elegant laughter. This laughter was inexplicably piercing. A man and a woman alone in this place. And they were laughing so happily. What was so funny? Yiqing Luo suppressed the surging unhappiness in her chest and calmed herself down. What she heard was false. She couldn't simply imagine. Yiqing Luo held her breath and followed the direction of the laughter to confirm the woman's location. Following that direction, she quietly moved closer. Her movements were very light. While moving, there was no sound at all. She neared the innermost room's window. Yiqing Luo looked through the half-opened window. She saw the bright luminous pearl light spilling out from the window. Yiqing Luo turned sideways and quietly looked through the window at the situation inside the room. Inside the room, the furnishings were elegant and there was a faint fragrance. One look and you knew it was an exquisite woman's study room. The surroundings were filled with bookshelves and all kinds of books. There was a long table that was bent over, and it was filled with books and scrolls. Yiqing Luo's corner. They could only see a fairy-like woman in a long white dress sitting on one side of the long table. Whereas opposite the lady, Yiqing Luo could only see half a side face of the figure. The figure was tall and slender, beautiful and straight like jade. It was just a glance. Yiqing Luo was certain. That guy was her Xian. Damn it. Her Xian was meeting girls behind her back. Should she rush in and catch the woman? Or should she squat outside and watch what kind of shady business they were doing behind her back? In Yiqing Luo's heart, it was as if 10,000 horses were galloping and roaring. That little princess is very willful. I'm sorry for disturbing you. The woman spoke in a gentle and graceful manner. Her eyes flickered, and her expression was full of tenderness and affection. Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened. He had the urge to strangle that woman. The man didn't even raise his head, as if he didn't see the woman's flirtatious gaze. He lowered his head and searched through the books and scrolls on the table. His slender, jade-like fingers stirred the chaos on the table. It's fine. Two cold and indifferent words. But it made Qing Ji's eyes gush with joy, but she pretended to be reserved and tried to find a topic. I heard that the Lord kidnapped the young master of the Feng family and was rescued by someone. That little princess must be furious. Chapter 48-96. The man who had been looking down at the book suddenly raised his eyes. Her black hair was as fine as flowing water and spread out like fine silk. Under the bright light of the night pearl, it rippled with a black luster. What did you say? The man's voice was deep, without much emotion. But Qing Ji's eyes were filled with joy. This was the first time he took the initiative to respond to her. Did this mean, was he interested in what he had to say? Qing Gu suppressed the excitement in her heart and continued the topic. That little princess is very angry, she is now looking for someone in the underground palace. The previous sentence, the man said faintly. Qing Gu thought for a moment. The young master of the Feng family? Why did he kidnap the Feng family? The man asked in a deep voice. Qing Gu shook her head. Maybe because the Feng family is related to that. She looked down at the messy books and paintings on the table. Maybe, his lord has found another way. She didn't know if it was an illusion. When she finished this sentence, the man's eyes seemed to sink a little. But when she looked carefully, the man's expression was still calm, without the slightest fluctuation of emotion. It was rare for a man to be interested in her topic. Although Qing Gu felt strange, she didn't want to end the topic like this, so she continued. The Feng family is really capable. They actually found this place to save people, but it's easy to come in, but difficult to get out. Not only can that person not save people, I'm afraid he will also die here. Look at how angry the little princess is. I'm afraid when the two people are found, they will be dead. The man didn't say anything at this moment. Instead, he looked down lightly. His eyes were a little cold. His breath was inexplicably cold. Qing Gu sensed that something was wrong. Her smiling eyes dimmed slightly. She seemed to be testing, but also seemed to be inadvertently asking, "You seem to care a lot about the Feng family?" The man didn't even lift his eyelids. He didn't mean to answer. "If you are really interested in the Feng family, I can also help you bring the young master of the Feng family and the person who came to save people here." Qing Gu guessed the man's thoughts and suggested. As she spoke, she sized up the man's expression. The man lowered his head. His fine black hair covered half of his face. His expression was half hidden. He couldn't see it clearly. Qing Gu was a little unfathomable. She looked at the handsome half of the man's face and said tentatively, "Little princess, you couldn't find them even after searching the entire underground palace. Perhaps they really are hiding here. As long as they enter this courtyard, I will be able to find them." For some unknown reason, Qing Gu always felt that the man in front of her was like a god, noble and elegant. He had an inexplicable concern for the people of the Feng family. However, after probing, the man's expression did not change. Even when she took the initiative to mention that she was going to look for the young master of the Feng family, he calmly spat out two words, "No need." It was a gentle and slow, simple, but not rude rejection. It seemed that the matters of the Feng family had nothing to do with him. Qing Gu lowered her beautiful eyes and suppressed the strange feeling in her heart. Maybe she thought too much? Qing Gu was relieved. Her cherry lips evoked an elegant smile. She held a book in her hand, got up and walked towards the man. "Look at this, doesn't it look like what you are looking for?" Chapter 48-97. She walked to the man's side. She placed the book in her hand in front of the man. Her long white dress fluttered and brushed against the man's purple robe. She leaned over slightly and lifted her wrist slightly, brushing past the man's ear and landed on the book. This distance would be very close. And this position would also pull the relationship between the two closer. Qing Gu was confident. Take out this angle, the most beautiful side. Let this man's sight stop on her for a few more breaths. Outside the window, Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly and stared at Qing Gu fiercely, getting closer and closer to the man's body. Especially when she saw Qing Ji's long veil brushing against the man's robe. She couldn't wait to rush in. The two separated. That Qing Gu wanted to seduce her man? Wasn't it good to live well? What was she thinking about? And, Xian, that pig trotter. Why didn't he avoid it? Why did he let Qing Gu get close to him? Did he still have any self-awareness as a married man? No way. She wanted to rush in. She wanted to tear that Qing Gu who wanted to get close to her man into pieces. Ow, ow, ow. So angry, so angry. So angry that she wanted to roar like an evil dragon. Calm down, calm down. Old man Tsang's voice interrupted Yiqing Luo's inner drama. He coughed lightly and comforted her. You must believe in the Overlord, he is the man you like. Of course I believe him. Yiqing Luo said this sentence without any hesitation. She had never said that she didn't believe in Dmo Xian. But believing in Dmo Xian didn't mean that she couldn't feel good. How could those wild chickens which came out of nowhere? How could they run around Dmo Xian? Since you believe in him, then you should believe that he will not have any ill intentions towards you. Old man Tsang could clearly feel Yiqing Luo's suppressed manic emotions. Yiqing Luo replied naturally, "Of course." She raised her chin and sneered in her heart. That Qing Gu, is she better looking than me? Smarter than me? Just a piece of trash. Old man Tsang listened to the young lady's sophistry. How could a piece of trash make her so angry? Was she really as calm as she looked on the surface? He didn't dare to say it, nor did he dare to ask. Yiqing Luo stared fixedly at the two people who were getting nearer and nearer. He almost rolled up his sleeves and climbed in through the window at this moment. The man sat in front of the table with his head slightly lowered. It was as though he had sensed something. He turned his head and looked out of the window. His obsidian eyes were as deep as the sea. It was like a whirlpool that could cause one to fall into it with a single glance. Yiqing Luo leaned against the wall, taking big mouthfuls of air silently as she asked in her mind, "Did he see it? Did he see it? I dodged so quickly that he probably didn't see me, right?" Just now, at the critical moment, she jerked her head back. But she did not know. If Dmo Xian had captured her silhouette, she was very fast. But Dmo Xian's acuity was extraordinary. Even if he saw it, he would know it was you and would not come out to catch you. What's there to be afraid of? Old man Tsang did not understand what Yiqing Luo was panicking about. Yiqing Luo hugged her head. If Ah Xian knew that I was peeping at him, I would be so shameless. Old man Tsang. Inside the house, the man who was looking out of the window had a trace of mischievous smile in his eyes. Even his entire face seemed to have softened a little. Chapter 48-98. Qing Gu was preparing to approach the man quietly to carry out her plan. What entered her eyes was a smear of gentleness. Her heart felt as though it had been shot by an arrow, as a little deer was pounding around. "Overlord!" A flirtatious voice called out to the man softly. Qing Ji's body leaned forward slightly, as she wanted to get closer. A swoosh sound was heard. Qing Ji's outstretched hand was blocked by a book. Tightly, the end of the book was slightly exerted. Qing Gu was pushed 2 steps away from the man. That book was casually thrown aside from the man's hand. That kind of nonchalance, as though he was throwing away unnecessary rubbish. "Overlord!" Qing Ji's heart skipped a beat as her voice turned hoarse. Her delicate and gentle face revealed a tinge of coquettish grumbling. She hadn't finished her words. Her throat was choked by the man's icy cold gaze. "Don't come near me." The man's voice was emotionless, so bland that it was almost cold. That kind of coldness and heartlessness, a direct and decisive rejection. Qing Ji's heart suddenly felt a little pain. But she still lowered her brows, lowering her attitude to the lowest. "Yes, I've overstepped." When Yiqing Gu cautiously stuck her head out again, looking into the window, Qing Gu had already returned to her original seat. As for Dmo Xian, he was at his original position, not moving at all. He seemed to be very focused, lowering his head to look at the book in his fingers. From the looks of it, Dmo Xian should not have sensed her presence earlier, right? She had already dodged in time. If Dmo Xian saw it, based on his vigilance, he would definitely check it out. But Dmo Xian had no reaction at all. He should not have sensed it. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. While she was relaxing, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but think. What was Dmo Xian trying to investigate in this base of secluded palace? This woman called Qing Gu. What the hell was this? From Linglong's words earlier, she could tell. The people in secluded palace actually knew that there was an outsider man in Qing Ji's room. Presumably that sinister and cunning person behind the scenes in secluded palace knew about this. But why? Would he allow Dmo Xian to stay in secluded palace's base? The people behind the palace of gloomy darkness were not afraid. Had Dmo Xian really found something? He was deep in thought. Yiqing Luo suddenly raised her vigilant eyes and looked behind her. She heard the sound of footsteps approaching. Under the misty night sky, the light from the luminous pearl shining through the window flickered. A figure walked out of the darkness. Her red dress was completely different from her cold and indifferent temperament, but it had a different kind of tension and charm. Zhu Wuxin? How did he find his way here? Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she shot him a warning stare. Zhu Wuxin's sleeve moved slightly, revealing a small figure. Xiao Tuanzi opened her eyes and looked around, her eyes filled with worry and anxiety. Yiqing Luo's brows creased even more tightly. Why did Zhu Wuxin bring Fengxi here? She cautiously glanced through the window and saw that the man was still maintaining his original posture. The person in the house was Dmo Xian. That man was too sharp. There is some movement here. It was highly possible that Dmo Xian would sense it. She took quick steps forward and took Fengxi from Zhu Wuxin's arms. Fengxi immediately wrapped her arms tightly around her neck, as though she had been given a huge shock. Yiqing Luo took a look at the direction of the room and patted Fengxi's back lightly. Her gaze congealed slightly, as though it was covered with a layer of darkness. Chapter 48-99. The young lady was quiet and her gaze was heavy. She looked at Zhu Wu Xian for a long time before she slowly retracted her gaze. Then she hugged Fengxi tightly and turned to leave. Zhu Wu Xian's icy cold lips curled upwards, revealing an unfathomable smile. There was Zhu Wuxin and Fengxi. If there was any movement between the two of them, it would be a piece of cake for the people in the room to find out, although she was very unwilling to let the two of them be alone in the room. But now, for Fengxi and her safety, and because of Dmo Xian, she wasn't clear about the reason why Dmo Xian was in the base of the Palace of Darkness. But Dmo Xian must have his own motive. She couldn't disturb Dmo Xian, and she couldn't let the disciples of the Palace of Darkness disturb Dmo Xian. Overlord. Qing Ji's voice was as gentle as the wind. She stared at Dmo Xian's slender jade-like fingers that were holding onto a piece of paper. This page, is there a clue? He stared at the contents of the page. It had been a quarter of an hour. He didn't turn the page. He just stared at it in a daze. This made Qing Gu, who had been paying attention to him, feel strange. Just as Qing Gu shouted, "Lord Di Zun," Dmo Xian's fingers tightened. The thin book paper was torn in half with a tearing sound. In the quiet study, the sound was extremely clear. Overlord? Qing Gu was startled. Dmo Xian slammed the book on the table. The force was so great that the books on the table were blown away by the strong wind, which scattered all over the floor. There was no emotion on that peerless face. Between his brows was a bone-chilling coldness. It was as if it carried the force of a thunderbolt. A storm was brewing. Overlord, what's the matter? This was the first time Qing Gu had seen such a powerful Dmo Xian. Her delicate body trembled slightly from the shock. Dmo Xian's dark eyes were fixed on the direction outside the window. The wind was blowing and there was no sound outside the window. That was the owner of the pair of eyes that was watching him. The aura had disappeared. And, at the moment when he disappeared, he could clearly feel it. The other was an aura that made people want to do evil. Yiqing Luo carried Fengxi as she returned to Gu Jingyu's room. Why are you awake? Yiqing Luo rubbed Fengxi's head, indicating that he could speak now. Fengxi's face turned red as she hugged Yiqing Luo tightly. Cece thought that because Cece was too lazy and only knew how to sleep, Fairy Sister didn't want Cece anymore. The little person's voice was crisp and clear, and there was even some fear and panic in it. Yiqing Luo placed her by the bedside. No matter, it's not entirely Cece's fault that Cece wants to sleep. She glanced meaningfully at Zhu Wu Xian, her pink lips curling into a deep arc with unknown meaning. Just now, as soon as he entered this room, Chu Wuxin poured a cup of tea for Feng Shi. There was clearly something wrong with the tea. However, seeing that it was only a few hours of rest, he didn't think too much of it. Therefore, she didn't stop Feng Shi from drinking that cup of tea. It was normal for Feng Shi to feel sleepy and doze off after drinking that cup of tea. Chu Wuxin didn't have the slightest bit of embarrassment after being exposed. He was magnanimous and had no intention to explain. Instead, he asked Yiqing Luo, "Didn't I ask you not to wander around? Why did you run so far away? Isn't this what you hoped for?" Yiqing Luo tilted her head, her gaze was slightly cold as she looked at him indifferently. "You let Feng Shi fall into a deep sleep and took the opportunity to draw my attention when I was alone." Qing Ji's situation. Chapter 4900. Her voice paused slightly as she tilted her head and laughed. "Isn't it because you want me to see the scene where Ah Xian and another lady interact alone?" Zhu Wu Xian didn't say a word. The gaze which he shot towards Yiqing Luo was filled with an unknown deep meaning, as though he wanted to see her into his eyes. Silence. That represented a tacit agreement. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as she wasn't angry. "Unfortunately, I'll have to disappoint you. The scene which you want to see will not be staged." The young lady's tone was obviously filled with ridicule. When she tilted her head slightly, her long and narrow eyes squinted. "Endless ridicule. Do you know what I want to see?" In the darkness, the man's deep and chilly voice rang. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. "Do you need to ask me what you want to see next? I'm curious." Zhu Wu Xian suddenly walked nearer to her as his footsteps were slightly heavy. "In your heart, how do you see me?" When he got nearer, and it was accompanied by a sky full of cold air, it made Feng Shi hide behind Yiqing Luo out of fear. Yiqing Luo hugged Feng Shi with one hand as she comforted his frightened heart while looking at him without any change in expression. "You don't want to know. But I do." Zhu Wu Xian got nearer as his chilly intent pounced on her. Yiqing Luo's eyes were gloomy as her long and narrow eyes were filled with a complicated glint. She pinched Feng Shi's hand lightly as she caressed it casually. She spoke calmly as her lips curled into a cold smile. "Do you want to hear the truth or a lie?" "A lie," Zhu Wu Xian replied without any hesitation. Yiqing Luo, wishful thinking. A man who didn't play his cards according to the norm was really quick-witted. She shouldn't have asked a truth or a lie. Her face was solemn as she put on a serious look. "I'm a kind young lady, I only speak the truth." Following that, she shot him a cold glance as her voice was indifferent. "Actually, in my heart, I feel that you are rather annoying." Zhu Wu Xian's expression remained unchanged, and Yiqing Luo didn't beat around the bush as she went straight to the point. "What you're thinking, isn't it to see a gap between Ah Xian and me, making me misunderstand that Ah Xian has betrayed me?" All sorts of schemes. In the end, it was just for her to see it with her own eyes. The man she loved, even when he knew that she was also in the God realm. However, he was still hiding in this place with another woman. A man and a woman, alone together. As for the other woman, it was obvious that she liked him. If it was any other woman who saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. He was afraid that he would lose his mind and lose his rationality. Thus, it affected the relationship between them. "Aren't you angry?" Zhu Wu Xian neither admitted nor denied it. Instead, he asked another question. Yiqing Luo replied calmly, "I'm angry." She raised her eyebrows. "Of course I'm angry, but I'm not angry because he betrayed me, because I know that in this world, no one will love me more than Ah Xian." Zhu Wuxin's brows furrowed tightly. His thin lips moved as if he wanted to refute. But in the end, he stopped himself from saying anything. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up as her smile was tainted with some gentleness. "I believe that Ah Xian will not betray me." He, Zhu Wuxin sneered in a low voice. The coldness in his eyes intensified. He stood in front of the young lady as he looked down at her from a high position. In the darkness, the outline of his grave and stern face was faintly discernible. That pair of serene eyes suddenly revealed an icy glint. I indeed know that he's here. Zhu Wuxin's voice sounded abnormally deep. Chapter 49:01. I indeed want you to see with your own eyes how the person you love is surrounded by other women when you're not around. As for him, he would rather be with another woman than come and see you. Even when you were forcefully betrothed to that Feng Chongqing by the acting god emperor, he didn't appear. Zhu Wu Xian's words entered her ears clearly. Like a huge bell, it struck Yiqing Luo's ears. His thin lips curled into a sneer. If he really cared about you and valued you, he wouldn't have let you face that kind of situation alone. He should stand out and admit that he is the one you want to marry. Zhu Wu Xian snorted, but he didn't. The one who stood out is me, the one who is willing to take responsibility for you is also me. He doesn't have the intention to spend the rest of his life with you, and he had never thought of appearing in front of your loved ones. Yiqing Luo, wake up, he doesn't love you at all. The more Zhu Wu Xian spoke, the heavier his tone became. It almost pressured the air in the entire room, making one unable to breathe. Feng Shi's little hand clutched Yiqing Luo tightly, as her little body trembled slightly. Yiqing Luo frowned as she kept her in her arms, standing up slightly, blocking the man's icy cold aura. Young Master Zhu, are you mistaken about something? The young lady's voice was filled with extreme coldness. What right do you have to judge my relationship with Ah Xian? Whether he doesn't care about me or not, whether he values me or not, I have my own judgment. As for you, so what if you stood out at that time? To me, your standing out made me feel very troublesome. Whether Ah Xian wants to spend the rest of his life with me, that's a matter between Ah Xian and I. Since I trust him, I will trust everything about him. And whether he loves me or not, it has nothing to do with you. The young lady's words were extremely indifferent, as though it was wrapped in ice. There wasn't any fluctuation of emotions, like thousands of silver needles, piercing into Zhu Wu Xian's heart. In his mind, every single word of the young lady's harsh words reverberated. I only like you, that's all. Why? Zhu Wu Xian's gaze was heavy as he looked at the young girl's face. Bit by bit, he shifted his gaze to the way she was holding Feng Shi in her arms, looking absolutely protective. The sorrow in his eyes deepened. Even the words that came out of his mouth sounded very hoarse. Why are you so cruel to me? Yiqing Luo didn't avoid his line of sight. She looked into his deep, cold eyes. He enunciated each word clearly and resolutely. I don't like you, so whatever you do, it's wrong. His words caused the entire room to fall into a deathly silence. After a long while, Zhu Wuxin laughed softly. His laughter was filled with bitterness and cold ridicule, because you love Dmo Xian. So no matter what he does, it's right. Right? Yes. Yiqing Luo replied decisively. He Zhu Wu Xian let out another cold laugh. His chest was concussed. Suddenly, he stretched out his hand and locked Yiqing Luo's wrist. Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she struggled to break free. His strength was extremely great. When Feng Shi saw this, she immediately hugged Zhu Wu Xian's hand, wanting him to let go of Yiqing Luo, let go of Fairy Sister. But Zhu Wu Xian directly stretched out his hand and held Feng Shi in his arms as his body leaned forward tightly, forcing Yiqing Luo to take 2 steps back. Her legs bent and touched the foot of the bed behind her. Chapter 49:02. Yiqing Luo's brows creased slightly. What do you want to do? Zhu Wu Xian locked her wrist with one hand. In the darkness, that faintly discernible grave and stern face was filled with endless coldness. The pair of eyes which blended in with the night, like a whirlpool, as though it was going to suck in everything around it. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. She had a bad premonition in her heart. Zhu Wu Xian's thin lips curled up. A deep and malicious voice rang beside the young lady's ear. You trust him so much, but will he believe you? Yiqing Luo realized what Zhu Wu Xian wanted to do. Her expression suddenly sunk. Zhu Wu Xian. Yiqing Luo bit his name heavily as her eyes seemed to be plated with a layer of frost. The young lady was furious. Her wrist, which was locked tightly by Zhu Wu Xian, suddenly turned in a strange position. She withdrew her hand from Zhu Wu Xian's grip. Immediately after, Yiqing Luo stretched out her arm towards Zhu Wu Xian, trying to snatch Feng Shi away from his arms. But, the moment she stretched out her hand, it was as though the man had seen through her actions. Yiqing Luo had just stretched out her hand, but it was intercepted by Zhu Wu Xian halfway. Her fair hand was once again held by the man's broad palm. But this scene seemed as though Yiqing Luo had taken the initiative to send herself into the man's hand. And right at this moment, a bam sound was heard. The tightly shut room door was suddenly pushed open. The ground suddenly began to shake. Even the things in the room started to sway. From outside the open door, it faintly projected the glow of the luminous pearl. In the room, the two people whose murderous intent was soaring were stunned for a moment by this sudden change. In the air, there was a ripple of an icy mountain's aura, as though it could freeze the surroundings into frost. The gloomy atmosphere was oppressive. The air was filled with a faint, chilly sandalwood fragrance. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly contracted. Xian. Hearing the young lady's soft cry, the whirlpools at the bottom of Zhu Wuxin's eyes surged more and more like surging waves. He was like a beast that had been trapped for a long time and was about to be freed. At this moment, the cold smile on his thin lips was filled with evil and malice. He grabbed the girl's wrist and bent down to "Come closer, girl." Zhu Wuxin. The refreshing fragrance of plums assaulted his nostrils. Yiqing Luo recovered from the earlier shock. She pushed Zhu Wuxin's hand away with her other hand, her fingertips moving slightly. A fiery red fan appeared between her slender, white fingers. A sharp blade came out from the handle of the fan and pierced into the man's chest. The fresh blood was not conspicuous among the red clothes. Zhu Wuxin snorted. He lowered his eyes and looked at his chest. The sharp blade stung his eyes. He chuckled softly, and the emotions in his eyes surged even more intensely. It was tight and firm, completely ignoring the sharp blade in his chest. He wrapped an arm around the girl's shoulder. He moved closer to the girl. The sharp blade pierced deeper into his chest. But he didn't care. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyelashes trembled slightly. Very quickly, her eyes were left with a piece of ice which was like a 1,000-year-old snow mountain, cold to the bone. The moment the man's arm wrapped around her. With a backhand, she locked onto his arm. It was tight and her body was pushed out of his arm's range. She had just moved. A hand was placed on her waist. The force was extremely strong. The overbearing aura invaded her senses. Bam! A heavy object landed on the ground, reverberating through the house. Chapter 49:03. That red robe fell heavily onto the ground. For a long time, she didn't get up. But no one was paying attention to that side. When the strength around his waist and the scent of sandalwood lingered around his body, he felt a chill run down his spine. In Yiqing Luo's eyes, all that was left was the face that was so close to her, like a god, noble and elegant. Xian! Yiqing Luo called out softly. The man's eyes were as deep as ink, reflecting the young girl's charming and beautiful face. The moment their eyes met, it was as though there were only the two of them left in the world. Until, Overlord, you. A lady's gentle voice was heard from the side, breaking the tenderness in the room. Yiqing Luo looked sideways towards the open door. She saw a lady dressed in white walking over. The chilly wind blew over. The lady's skirt was rolled up, like a blooming white lotus, pure and noble. It was that woman called Qinggu. The scene was a little unbelievable. nestled in Diamo Xian's arms. Yiqing Luo was still in the mood to imagine a drama in her mind. Was this considered? Husband and cheating partner, caught on the spot. Her and Chu Wu Xian this cheating partner? It seemed. Their relationship was a little complicated? Above her head, Diamo Xian's hoarse voice floated down. What are you thinking about? He didn't even look at Qing Guo from the corner of his eyes. His gaze was focused on Yiqing Luo, and he could clearly see the various weird expressions on the young lady's face. Just a glance. He knew that his young lady was daydreaming again. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she was caught red-handed as her cheeks flushed red and coughed violently. Nothing. Nothing. Diamo Xian scoffed lightly as his slender fingers pinched her face. Don't let your imagination run wild. Then have you ever let your imagination run wild? Yiqing Luo's narrow eyes curved as her eyes were filled with craftiness and ridicule. There was no ill feeling between the two of them. It made the man in red who was lying on the ground stand up shakily. Blood was gushing out from his chest. The corners of her lips were also bright red. But he was still smiling. The curve of his thin lips was clear and cold. That smile was startling to see. The scene in front of him was so warm that it could not contain anyone. It was as if it was mocking him, everything he had done. It was all just a joke. He couldn't interfere at all. Obviously, he already knew about this matter. But his heart would still hurt. Zhu Wuxin lowered his gaze and stared at the spot on his chest where blood was seeping out. The feeling of the blade stabbing into his chest still lingered in his body. But the pain here. It was not even half a beat away from the heart. Perhaps it was because his gaze was too deep. The man who was looking at the girl with deep affection suddenly raised his head. He glanced at Zhu Wu Xian indifferently, carelessly, disdainfully, and respectfully. His beautiful thin lips curled into a mocking smile. Then, his hand slid down the girl's face and held her wrist. His fingers with distinct joints moved slightly. The blood-stained feather fan in the girl's hand fell into the man's hand. It's dirty. Let me clean it for you. The man's voice wasn't very soft. In the quiet and spacious room, it was extremely clear to the ears. It could even echo. It was like... He intentionally said it for someone to hear. That glower flame fan which was stained with Zhu Wu Xian's blood was kept by Diamo Xian. Zhu Wu Xian. Yiqing Luo seemed to be recalling. That Zhu Wu Xian whom she had stabbed, and was suddenly hit by Diamo Xian's palm.